Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Marvel. Everything around me can mutate. Wanda has mutated too. Chapter 61. The blue light curtain in front of Lin Yu clearly showed all the changes after the system was promoted to level 4. Host. Lin Yu. System level. Level 4. 30 plot points are required to upgrade to the next level. After the system is upgraded to level 5, new functions and spatial mutations will be opened. Because the mutations generated by the system no longer simply affect creatures and objects, but can affect the space. Plot point. 0 points remaining. Appearance range of mutants. For any living and non-living substances that are connected with the host, the attribution of the mutants is not restricted. Probability of each level of variant. Probability of level 1 mutants, 40%. Probability of second-order mutants, 30%. Probability of third-order mutant emergence, 20%. Probability of fourth-order variants, -10%. Appearance probability of fifth-order mutants, 1% can be triggered in extreme cases. Probability of sixth-order variants, 0%. The effect of this promotion is obvious. The biggest change is that after reaching level 4, even if it is not Lin Yu's stuff, it can mutate. As long as it is something related to Lin Yu, it can be mutated. Make an analogy. For example, the space carrier that Lin Yu is currently on is not Lin Yu's thing, but the property of S.H.I.E.L.D. If this space carrier was previously incapable of mutation. But now, after Lin Yu's system is upgraded to Tier 4, this space carrier may be mutated because Lin Yu is inside. In addition, that is, the probability of the appearance of various variants of the same order has changed again. The probability of higher-order mutants has increased. On this system panel, it also explains the direction of improvement after the next upgrade. Wait until the system is upgraded to level 5, and it can even affect the space. Could it be that after the mutation can affect the space, you can teleport? Lin Yu secretly asked. However, he just thought about it casually. Didn't care too much. It is still a little far away to consider the 5th level. After all, 30 plot points are not easy to get. In addition to these conventional descriptions, after this upgrade, a line of text appeared at the bottom of the blue light curtain. When you see this line of words, Lin Yu was really shocked. This is a new ability that appeared after the system was promoted to level 4. The description is simple. However, for Lin Yu, it is very important. Turn on the negative mutation ability. Any life that speaks badly to the host or does it will be affected by the negative mutation. The scope of the negative mutation and the probability of each level of the mutation are related to the system level, and the probability of the positive mutation is the same. The next level will be promoted to any life that has evil thoughts on the host, and will be affected by negative mutations. Read this line again carefully. Lin Yu's mood became more and more excited. Doesn't this mean that anyone who dares to oppose him in the future will be in bad luck? Negative mutation, isn't it getting worse and worse? After this, who would dare to be an enemy of oneself? And, even more terrifying is after the system has advanced to level 5. At that time, as long as anyone dares to have any bad thoughts about themselves, there will be negative mutations around them. This is too strong. Even though this is his own skill, Lin Yu couldn't help but sigh. At the moment, Lin Yu, lying lazily on the chair, suddenly opened his eyes. There was an excited smile on his face. It seems to indicate that someone is going to be unlucky. At the moment, just when Lin Yu got up and walked out of the main control room. In the laboratory of the space carrier, several members of Avengers suddenly quarreled. These people, whether it is a genius scientist Tony Stark, or the originally powerful Thor, or the Captain of the United States Steve, are all unruly people. Everyone has the capital to be proud of. When these people are put together, and no one is convinced, chaos naturally arises. In addition, Steve accidentally discovered that S.H.I.E.L.D. was researching weapons and equipment through Tesseract. For a time, the whole laboratory was full of quarrels. Even Nick Fury, who has always been calm, participated in this quarrel strangely. And in this laboratory, Loki's mind scepter is emitting a light blue light. Everyone didn't notice that their mentality today seemed to be particularly irritable. And at the moment, just when everyone kept arguing, Lin Yu already took Erha and quietly came to the cabin where Loki was closed. Lin Yu still has to get the plot points on Loki. Although the 30 plot points of the next upgrade are not easy to gather, but the accumulation of less will make a lot of it. Naturally, no plot point can be missed. When Lin Yu walked into this room, Loki was entertaining himself in that huge amounts of glass secret room. It seems that I am not worried at all about my current situation. Ding! Congratulations to the host for the first time seeing Loki, the core protagonist of the Marvel world, the god of tricks. You will be rewarded with 2 plot points. In Lin Yu's mind, the system prompt sounded. What surprised Lin Yu was that he didn't expect this Loki to be a protagonist. I even provided myself with 2 plot points. A smile suddenly appeared on Lin Yu's face. And at the moment, Loki, who was locked in the strengthening glass cell, suddenly said coldly, "Hey, are you the weakest kid among these freaks?" Loki discussed every Avengers member with Barton, who was under his control. For Lin Yu, he has never taken it seriously. He feels that if his own strength is not enough, he can only be slaughtered fish. Lin Yu, a guy who only relies on external forces, is not even worth paying attention to as a high-level agent like Natasha Romanoff. Hearing Loki's words, Lin Yu was immediately happy. What you said makes sense, I am indeed the weakest. Lin Yu yawned and said nonchalantly. Immediately afterwards, without waiting for Loki to say anything, Lin Yu slowly said, "No matter how weak I am a human like them. No matter how strong you are also a freak in Asgard." As a person familiar with every character and every plot of Marvel, how could Lin Yu not know where Loki's wound is? He was not originally from Asgard. It was the baby that Odin brought back in Jotunheim when he fought in the Giants of Jotunheim. In other words, Loki is actually a Giants of Jotunheim. He is the child of an enemy of the Aesir Protoss. This is the eternal pain in Loki's heart. In his heart, he always felt that it was his origin that made his father Odin favor his brother Thor so much. Lin Yu's words are like sprinkling salt on his wounds. Loki raged all of a sudden. He even forgot that his purpose of coming here was actually to provoke these Avengers members. Loki's face was cold and frosty, and the anger in his eyes was almost gushing out. He leaned in front of the glass and said viciously, "You will wait for me. When I go out, I will chop off your limbs and dig out your eyes to make you change. Become a real monster." Loki yelled with teeth and claws. He was about to hate Lin Yu to death. But, facing Loki's harsh words, Lin Yu's expression remained calm. And, there seems to be a ruoiru smile on his face. Ding! Loki, the god of tricks, was rude to the host and caused dissatisfaction in the cell under his feet. It decided to take Loki out to breathe, calm. At the moment, Loki in the glass cell was suddenly taken aback. He seemed to perceive something wrong. Like, what is happening under my feet? Loki hurried to the edge of the glass cell, looking down through the glass. When I saw the scene below, Loki's heart trembled suddenly. The door under the glass cell opened by itself. Roar howled the wind. The bottom seems to be like an abyss, with no bottom. Before, Nick Fury introduced this cell specifically to him. This is a cell specially made for the Hulk banner. Its most powerful feature is that it can instantly throw the cell towards the bottom of the space carrier. Falling directly to the ground at an altitude of 9 kilometers, this terrifying impact, I am afraid that Loki may not be able to resist it. Loki was dumbfounded. He originally thought that if he stayed in there honestly, he shouldn't be thrown away. However, I did not expect that the actual situation seems a bit weird. The guy named Lin Yu obviously didn't move the switch. And he didn't do anything outrageous. Why? The door below suddenly opened. Loki looked dumbfounded. Could it be that if you just said something cruel, you will suffer retribution? It shouldn't be. As the god of Asgard's tricks, I haven't spoken harshly in this life. At the moment, Lin Yu, standing outside the glass cell, suddenly smiled. Waved to Loki inside, as if saying goodbye. Loki's face changed. Swish! Loki and the glass cell instantly disappeared from Lin Yu's sight. Lin Yu bent down slightly and looked down. I can't see Loki's figure long ago. The glass cell was descending quickly. Although the height of the space carrier is now about 9 kilometers, Lin Yu estimates that in less than a minute, Loki will be in close contact with the ground. At this moment, Nick Fury, who was arguing with the Avengers in the space mothership laboratory, suddenly received a report from his subordinates. "Chief, no, the system on the mothership showed that the cell where Loki was locked up suddenly fell. What? Nick Fury was surprised, hastily turned and ran in the direction of the cell. Behind him, Thor hurriedly followed. Compared to other Avengers members, Thor's hearing is much better than others. So, I clearly heard the sound in Nick Fury's earphones. Thor was stunned, also terrified. He also heard Nick Fury's introduction of the cell before. Although his younger brother Loki is of the giants of Jotunheim's physique, he is very strong, but Thor is also a little worried about whether he can withstand the impact of this intensity. Thor is still very concerned about Loki's younger brother. Although he often causes troubles, Thor has always treated him as his own brother. In 3 or 2 steps, Thor ran in front of Nick Fury and rushed to the location of the cell. He has heard the wind of roar. Obviously, after the cell fell, there was no sound of closing the door below. When Thor came to the room where the cell was, Lin Yu was looking down. Thor glanced at Lin Yu, his eyes full of anger. It must be this guy. He pressed the switch and threw his brother down. But, at this time, Thor has no time to settle accounts with Lin Yu. He grabbed the hammer in his hand and jumped directly from the hole. He is going to save Loki. If Loki dies, he will regret it forever. Thor just went down for a few seconds. Nick Fury came into this room out of breath. When he saw Lin Yu was here, he was taken aback. Immediately afterwards, it seemed that something came to mind. Then, weakly asked, "Counselor Lin, it is you who put Loki down?" There is no one else in this room, and Nick Fury suspects Lin Yu, which is normal. However, he didn't dare to blame Lin Yu, he could only ask humbly. But, Lin Yu slowly shook his head, spread his hands innocently, and said, "It seems that your machine is broken. I didn't press that switch." Lin Yu pressed his tongue and pointed to the switch that was still intact. Obviously, the switch cover is still not opened. Lin Yu definitely won't admit it. Only if there is a hole in your head will you admit that you did it yourself. Moreover, the good things the system does will not leave any evidence. Even if you call up monitoring, it has nothing to do with yourself. Nick Fury gave a wry smile. He doesn't believe in the unrealistic reason why the machine is broken. But, he didn't dare to question Lin Yu. I can only say to the agent in the communicator, hurry up and send someone to check what is wrong. As the actual person in charge of this space carrier, he must be responsible for everything that happens on it. If Loki is really thrown to death, it is estimated that Thor will definitely run away. He must give Thor an explanation. But, what everyone on the space carrier does not know is, just when the glass cell fell, an airplane appeared just below the space carrier. And Hawkeye Barton on the plane saw the fallen glass cell for the first time. His eyesight is very good. I saw Loki in the glass cell in an instant. His heart was startled, but he also reacted immediately. The plane opened fire for the first time and hit the glass cell. As the high-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Barton is very familiar with this space carrier, and also quite familiar with this cell. He understood that he wanted to break the strengthening glass wall of the cell in such a rapid fall. It is estimated that even with Loki's strength, it is impossible. So, there is only one way. It was through the fire on the plane to smash that cell outside. Thor is still late. When he landed on the ground with Mjolnir in his hand, only one piece of glass was seen. Loki is missing. Thor looked around on the ground and found no trace of Loki. He frowned, grabbed Mjolnir, and flew to the space carrier again. Although Loki's body was not found, it is possible that Loki was not thrown to death. But, Thor is still very rage in his heart. In his heart, he has already determined that Lin Yu put the cell down. This behavior is simply a provocation to Asgard. An ordinary human dared to provoke the majesty of God. It's almost dead. Surtur in this period is still very proud of his identity as the Asgard Protoss. Some people look down on ordinary people on Earth. Thor angrily returned to the deck. He didn't even knock on the door. Directly blasted the door open with a hammer. Then, loudly roared, "Lin Yu, come out and die for me." Thor's voice directly penetrated countless walls and reached Lin Yu's ears. Definitely, except Lin Yu, other Avengers members, as well as countless S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, all heard this angry voice. Nick Fury, who was standing next to Lin Yu, said in his heart a bad voice. He hurriedly turned his head to look at Lin Yu. I couldn't help but pray. I hope Lin Yu will not really get angry because of this sentence. Otherwise, my own space carrier will suffer. In Nick Fury's heart, he has imagined that horror picture. Thor is holding Mjolnir with a violent thunder shining on his body, and Lin Yu stands opposite him with a face full of anger. Behind Lin Yu, an Autobot and 3 terrifying green hell 3-headed dogs. Don't let the gods fight and hurt mortals. Nick Fury's fantasy is not without reason. Thor and Lin Yu, one arrogant, and one defect must be reported, neither is good. Nick Fury knows this best. If the two men really fought, then Avengers would be the first to disintegrate before starting a battle with Loki's army. The Avengers project is Nick Fury's greatest effort, and naturally he doesn't want it to die. At this moment, Nick Fury looked carefully in Lin Yu's direction. In his heart, he was ready. In any case, even if you fight your own life, you have to stop Lin Yu. At the very least, you can't let the two of you really start. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. But, when Nick Fury's eyes saw Lin Yu, he was suddenly taken aback. Because, what Lin Yu rage imagined did not appear. On the contrary, Lin Yu seemed to be in a good mood. There was a slight smile on his face. What's the situation? Nick Fury's head won't react for a while. Lin Yu, although he always likes not to play cards according to the routine, he shouldn't be indifferent when he hears the opponents begging. This is not his character. But, Lin Yu in front of me is really lifeless. What situation? At this moment, Lin Yu also seemed to notice the panic on Nick Fury's face. He turned his head, smiled slightly at Nick Fury, and then said, "Don't worry, you can't fight, a little Thor is not worth my hand." Hearing Lin Yu's words, Nick Fury almost had a heart attack. Although this guy is not angry, he still has that big tone. Although Nick Fury feels that the two monsters around Lin Yu are indeed very strong, it is not enough to prevent Lin Yu from paying attention to Thor. That person is a real god. However, Lin Yu's statement made Nick Fury wonder how to persuade him. Seeing Lin Yu slowly walking out, Nick Fury didn't stop it, and it didn't happen if he didn't stop. He was a little overwhelmed for a while. After thinking for a while, he simply caught up with Lin Yu in 2 steps and followed Lin Yu. He felt that it was better for him to follow, and if he still had to fight, he would at least be able to pull a fight. Although it may not be able to pull. Just now, just after Thor roared, the voice of the system rang in Lin Yu's mind. Ding! Thor speaks wildly and scolds his host angrily. Mjolnir feels that his host is too arrogant and decides to give up. Ding! Mjolnir suddenly became interested in the host and wanted to get closer to the host. Hear Thor's crazy words. Lin Yu actually wanted to get angry. But, hearing this prompt sound from the system again, the anger in my heart suddenly went out again. What does Mjolnir want to be close to himself? Is it possible that this guy wants to betray his master and throw himself into his arms? Is there such a good thing? Lin Yu's face was full of surprises. In the last life, I saw Thor's Mjolnir in the movie, and Lin Yu had imagined countless times that if he had such a powerful hammer, it would be so exciting. Did not expect. The surprise came so suddenly. What are you waiting for? Decisively take advantage of Mjolnir's strike, go get close to it. Lin Yu took a step forward and hurriedly walked outside. At the same time, Thor, who just finished roaring, suddenly felt something wrong. It's not right. Why is the Mjolnir in my hand getting heavier and heavier? This is impossible. Thor hurriedly wanted to raise Mjolnir to his eyes to take a closer look at what was wrong. But, when Thor tried to lift the hammer, he found that he couldn't lift it too heavily. Although the veins on Thor's arm were exposed, it still didn't help. He has encountered this situation before. It was 2 years ago. He was exiled to the earth by his father Odin because he did something wrong. At that time, Mjolnir didn't admit to himself, so he couldn't lift it up by himself. And at the moment, as Mjolnir gets heavier, Thor becomes holding the hammer with both hands. There was also a look of horror on his face. Most of his abilities are in this hammer. If you lose Mjolnir, then you will be a scumbag. But, the more Thor wanted to lift Mjolnir, the heavier he felt Mjolnir. His face was already sweating. I don't know if it's because of too much force or too scared. When Lin Yu and Nick Fury came to Thor, they happened to see Thor's miserable scene. Dignified Thor can't even hold his own weapon. Moreover, this hammer, few people call Roar its real name Mjolnir, everyone likes to use Mjolnir to describe this hammer. But now, it's ridiculous that Thor can't afford Mjolnir. This is nothing short of slipping the world. Thor clearly understands that at the moment's own image is indeed a bit embarrassing. When he saw Nick Fury and Lin Yu arrive, Thor was completely embarrassed into anger. Don't be ashamed in front of these mortals. Must pick it up. Boom. Mjolnir completely separated from Thor's hands and fell onto the deck of the space carrier. Thor also thought, almost squatting on the ground. But Thor still didn't give up, grabbing Mjolnir's hammer handle with both hands again. But no matter how hard he tried, Mjolnir seemed to grow on a space carrier, motionless. Thor, who could not hold Mjolnir, suddenly knelt on the ground. Facing the sky, he shouted, "Father, why don't you let me pick up Mjolnir?" Why? There seemed to be a hint of crying in Thor's voice. Because there was a precedent, Thor thought that he couldn't afford Mjolnir again, this time because of his father Odin. At this moment, Lin Yu and Nick Fury suddenly looked at each other as if they had a sharp heart. They both saw a trace of embarrassment in each other's eyes. Even Lin Yu felt a little embarrassed. This kind of watching when others are most miserable is really not good. Although Thor can't afford Mjolnir, it's because of Lin Yu. Or, let's avoid it first. Lin Yu said to Nick Fury. Lin Yu is not a robber either. At this time, if I ran over and got close to Mjolnir, it would be a bit too much to take advantage of others. Although Thor just called the advantage of the device, he actually did not cause any actual harm to Lin Yu. Lin Yu is very big. Sometimes very big. Nick Fury nodded hastily after hearing Lin Yu's words. He also felt a little embarrassed. Moreover, he wished that the two of them were far away. But just when Lin Yu and Nick Fury were about to turn around and leave, Thor, who was sitting on his knees, suddenly raised his head. His eyes were red, and he seemed to be at the tipping point of rage and collapse. Mortals, dare to challenge the majesty of the Aesir Protoss, you are looking for death. Thor has lost all his hammers, and he hasn't forgotten to trouble Lin Yu. Hearing Thor's words, Nick Fury's head is big. This Thor, how did he grow so big? Isn't his father the legendary god King Odin? Don't you even know how to discipline your own son? Lost all his weapons, still thinking about the illusory majesty. Lin Yu was happy. I was really amused by this stunned green. I can't hold my hammer anymore, still thinking about my majesty. It's as if a beggar can't eat food, he still wants to see beautiful women. Can majesty be eaten? Go crazy. Lin Yu took the steps he had just taken, and took it back. Turned around, sneered, looking at the brainless Thor in front of him. Recalling the plot in the previous movie, combined with the Thor that he saw with his own eyes, Lin Yu finally understood why Odin didn't pass the position of the King of God to him earlier. This guy obviously doesn't have a good brain. Lin Yu doesn't like to deal with guys who don't work well. Especially if the brain is not good, but also brute force. Maybe I have to mess with it. The only way is to completely destroy the confidence of the other party. At this moment, Lin Yu suddenly said coldly, "Are you sure you want to pretend to be in front of me?" If it is a normal person, Lin Yu may go to explain. But faced with Thor who provoked himself twice, Lin Yu no longer wanted a peaceful solution. One's own indulgence can only make others think that it is weakness. Instead of that, it's better to let the other party understand how terrible they are. Aside, after hearing Lin Yu's words, Nick Fury was shocked. It's over. This time is completely over. Two big guys, I can't stop them. Although Nick Fury is very afraid of the two fighting, he is not stupid. At this time, if you stand in the middle of the two, it is estimated that you will be the only one who is unlucky. There is only one way. Gather everyone's strength to stop these two people together. Nick Fury took 2 steps backwards quietly, and then said to the communicator in his ear, "Natasha Romanoff, hurry up and call everyone to the gate of Area A, Thor is going to fight Lin Yu." He really has no choice but to choose foreign aid. After Roar finished calling the foreign aid, Nick Fury's figure slowly moved on his hind legs again and came to a corner. He didn't want the battle between the two to affect himself. And at the moment, just after Lin Yu said that sentence, Erha behind Lin Yu also walked a few steps forward and came to Lin Yu's front. As a loyal dog, he has already felt the anger on his master. At first sight, Erha's body was already covered with a touch of green. The transformation of the three-headed dog from the green flame hell is about to begin. But, at this moment, Lin Yu suddenly stretched out his foot and kicked Erha's. Although he didn't kick, the green on Erha's body suddenly shrank back like a tide. Lin Yu snorted softly. While playing, I don't need you. Outside the door that had turned into scum, the hornet, who was just about to transform, stopped in fright after hearing these words. As an Autobot who surpasses Earth's technology, it can observe the status of its owner at any time through the monitoring and recording equipment on the space carrier. But, it is a bit smarter than Erha, knowing to converge, not to rush to the front of everything stupidly. But, the sudden appearance and departure of Erha did not affect Thor. He has slowly stood up, his eyes burning with anger. For Lin Yu, he also heard some news from Natasha Romanoff and Steve. This guy is just a little weird. Plus there are two nice pets around. Others, nothing. Mortal, I will let you understand how stupid it is to provoke the gods of the Aesir Protoss. Thor snorted coldly, clenched his fist, and struck Lin Yu. Although he rarely fights with his fists, relying on the powerful flesh of the Aesir Protoss, there is no problem dealing with a mortal on Earth. Thor felt in his heart that even if the two monsters they said were going together, he would not fail. But, Thor is just a little bit nasty, but he is not a big evil person. His fist was not aimed at Lin Yu's vitals. Instead, he aimed at Lin Yu's shoulder. He prepared to let Lin Yu suffer. However, facing Thor Rage's punch, Lin Yu didn't seem to react at all. Let Thor's fists keep getting closer. Ding! Thor showed his fist to the host, which caused dissatisfaction with Thor's boots on his feet. Why did he punch instead of kick? The boots decided to increase their weight and increase their importance. Thor has 2 or 3 steps before he can come to Lin Yu. Give Lin Yu an unforgettable lesson. But, at this time, Thor suddenly noticed something wrong. It's like when I couldn't hold Mjolnir just now. He suddenly found that his feet suddenly became heavy. And, this change is faster than Mjolnir getting heavier. Although the weight is not heavier than Mjolnir, it is difficult for Thor in running to adapt to this change. Puff! He fell to the ground. Face down, fell a dog and chewed shit. Nick Fury hiding in the corner was stunned. Looked dumbfounded. What's the situation? Okay, how can you make such a big gift? This time, Thor really fell into a blindfold. Just after experiencing that his brother almost died, and experienced Mjolnir's abandonment, after such a fall, Thor felt a kind of dizzy feeling in the whole person. It's like, I just rejected the confession of my base friend, and then my girlfriend suddenly called and said to break up. The sky is dim and the sky is spinning. For a moment, Thor couldn't get up on the ground. And at the moment, there was a mess of footsteps, suddenly from far to near. Natasha Romanoff took the Avengers members and all rushed over. When they heard Nick Fury say that Lin Yu and Thor were about to fight, they were extremely nervous, so they all trot and rushed to the scene. But, the scene before him stunned all these people. How does it feel so weird? At the moment, Nick Fury hid in a corner, his face full of shock. And Thor is lying on the ground, face down, facing Lin Yu. There seems to be something he dare not see. And Lin Yu, standing on the ground so quietly, there was no expression on his face. The appearance of these 3 people can be as strange as they are. This is how Chief Fury said the 2 are going to fight. How to spell? Do you roll around? Everyone is a little confused. As long as it happens to Lin Yu, there will always be something unusual. And the current situation seems to have appeared because Zhao Hao was Lin Yu. Because, among the 3, only Lin Yu's situation seemed a little more normal. But, in the eyes of everyone, Lin Yu, who looked a little normal, walked forward slowly at the moment. It bypassed Thor's body lying on the ground. Then, came to the side of Mjolnir. With all the stunned expressions on their faces, they bent down and grabbed one hand on the handle of Mjolnir's hammer. As if there was no effort, he lifted it up. The Mjolnir, which was built with the dying fixed star kernel, was so easily picked up by Lin Yu. Suddenly Thor felt a little bit and got up from the ground. His feet did not move on the spot, but his upper body and neck turned back, looking at Lin Yu behind him. Moment. His eyes widened, mouth opened wide. The mood suddenly fell to the bottom. He actually picked up Mjolnir. Especially Meow, who just said that Lin Yu is just an ordinary person. For Mjolnir, that is Mjolnir, these people still know something about it. Although none of them tried to pick it up. But according to the information of S.H.I.E.L.D., this hammer is not something ordinary people can hold. Only those who are recognized by it can pick it up. And at the moment, this powerful Mjolnir was so easily held by Lin Yu. It shocked everyone's eyes. From Thor's horrified look, it can be seen that even his master of Mjolnir is stunned. At the moment, Thor is still trapped in place. The boots on his feet were still heavy and unable to lift. But one of his hands suddenly lifted up, and his palm stretched out, showing a state of grasping. At the moment, this is his favorite action and also the most commonly used action. Generally, when he does this, Mjolnir will take the initiative to fly into his hands. However, this time, he was still disappointed. After raising his hand for a few seconds, Mjolnir was still lying quietly in Lin Yu's hand, with no response at all. It's like the phone lost the signal and didn't receive Thor's call. Thor retracted his arm with a lonely expression, as if he had lost his beloved one. But, even if he made this expression, Lin Yu would no longer pity him. After all, Lin Yu had already pitied him once. But he didn't appreciate it. At this moment, Lin Yu held Mjolnir and walked forward slowly 2 steps. He came to Thor and said calmly, "This hammer, lend me to play for a day, and I will return it to you if you have enough." Lin Yu's words are very plain. It's like borrowing an eraser between 2 good friends. After I have erased all the typos in this workbook, I will return the eraser to you. That's pretty much what it means. Thor wanted to refuse, but he couldn't say anything. In his eyes, there is only sadness and speechlessness. Definitely, Lin Yu didn't give him a chance to speak either. Said it was borrowing, but it was actually grabbing. It only borrowed for 1 day, and it was only because the system had prompted that Mjolnir just stopped for 1 day. It is estimated that after this day, Thor will be able to control this Mjolnir again. Then Lin Yu can only care about the 3721, first use it to play for a day and then talk about it. After all, it is a legendary artifact, 1 day can be played for 1 day. But Lin Yu did not return to the space carrier. But slowly, he walked to the side of Bumblebee. The 9-kilometer altitude and thin air still failed to cause any trouble to Lin Yu. It's like in your own garden. Without Lin Yu's hands, the car door opened by himself. Lin Yu held the hammer with a smile on his lips, and slowly got into the car. At this moment, all the Avengers, as well as Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., haven't been able to slow down. They are all staring straight at the leaving figure of Lin Yu. The color in his eyes, I don't know if it is envy or jealousy. It may also be panic. Behind him, Erha ran over, climbed up from under the door, and slipped to the position of the co-pilot. At this time, while Camaro's car door hadn't closed yet, Lin Yu suddenly smiled weirdly, and then suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed to the rear side of the space carrier. He whispered, "You, be careful of the enemy. Everyone, look in the direction of Lin Yu's finger." Suddenly, my heart was shocked. On the side and rear of the space carrier, there is an aircraft quietly approaching. Nick Fury hurriedly used the communicator in his ear to ask the agent in the main control room, "What's the matter with the aircraft behind the mothership side? Is it an enemy or a friendly army?" Although Lin Yu's voice is not loud and the air is thin, he cannot reach everyone's ears. But, as an agent leader, Nick Fury knows lip language very well. He has already figured out the meaning of Lin Yu's words through Lin Yu's mouth shape. In the headset, a report from Nick Fury's staff came. "Director, that's our own aircraft, authorization number 4577. Before his subordinates finished the report, Nick Fury's expression suddenly became serious. He hurriedly yelled in the communicator, "It's the code, that's the enemy, not the friendly army. This number is the number of Barton of Blacken. Knock it down for me, hurry, hurry." Nick Fury was terrified. Actually let the enemy fly to the side of the space carrier. At this time, Barton's CDAH is no longer safe. If you don't shoot it down, everyone present will be in danger. Nick Fury's voice is loud. All the Avengers members nearby heard it. Suddenly, they all became nervous. And at the moment, Camaro on the deck, the door finally closed slowly. Unlike a car, the Camaro, which was more like a flight machine, burst into a hot flame. 6 spray devices are activated at the same time. After rising slowly, he turned a corner in the sky, left the deck, and flew down. Everyone at Avengers seemed to be able to see Lin Yu smiling and waving at them through Camaro's front windshield. This guy, seeing the enemy coming, he ran away by himself. Everyone present couldn't help being disgusted with Lin Yu's behavior. But they never thought about it. If it weren't for Lin Yu just got a hand of Mjolnir today, I'm very happy. With Lin Yu's character and style, I guess he wouldn't even remind them that the enemy is coming. After all, this group of people, there is also Tony who is looking for Lin Yu to settle accounts, and there is also Thor who just wanted to give Lin Yu a bit of color. Lin Yu himself also knows the strength of these Avengers. Even if the enemy comes, I guess there is nothing to do with them. In the original plot, these Avengers also easily rescued the space carrier that almost crashed. This time, although he snatched Mjolnir, Thor's combat effectiveness was greatly reduced, but he also told them the enemy's trail in advance. One advantage and one disadvantage can be considered even. Definitely, Lin Yu left in a hurry for a reason. Because, just now, Bumblebee had already contacted Lin Yu. The situation outside the space carrier was reported. With the Bumblebee there, nothing can be hidden from him. Lin Yu is very clear about Loki's rescue and Barton's arrival. The most important is, Lin Yu doesn't want to put himself in danger. What if the plot does not follow the script? What if the space carrier suddenly explodes? Although the mutation of the system has never let myself down. But Lin Yu still likes to be cautious. If there is no certainty of victory, you will stay far away. Besides, all the plot points that should be taken have been obtained, and there is no point in staying on this space carrier. Boom. Just not long after the Hornet left the space carrier, a violent explosion sounded from behind. Barton led a group of agents controlled by the psychic scepter and launched an attack on the space carrier. And at the moment, the hardest thing is Thor. He couldn't lift his feet until the explosion sounded. Lin Yu went home in his car and was happy. However, the people on the space carrier are not so leisurely. The idea of Loki and Barton was to create chaos and awaken the monsters in Banner. So, they attacked without hesitation. Although Lin Yu's reminder made Nick Fury aware of Barton's arrival a little bit in advance, it was still one step too late. An arrow with explosive ability was shot from Barton's bow and arrow and exploded directly on an engine of the space carrier. This shield space carrier has a total of 4 engines. Because one of them lost power, it immediately caused a problem with the flight of the space carrier. Plus Barton and others are destroying everywhere. There was a mess on the space carrier. And at the moment, in the chaos, Dr. Banner's mood suddenly became a little abnormal. It stands to reason that this little mess should not cause him to become a Hulk. But everyone hadn't noticed. When they were arguing before, they had all been affected by the spiritual scepter. The mind scepter can affect people's consciousness even without touching the human body. It's just a little weaker. But even this weak influence also caused Banner to go crazy after the chaos. Finally, in the horrified eyes of everyone, Dr. Banner transformed. Become that scary green monster. The Hulk is finally here. In an instant, the Hulk began to destroy frantically. In the early stage of Avengers, the strength of the Hulk can be regarded as the top. Even Iron Man was not the Hulk's opponent at all in the early days. Definitely, the first to be unlucky was Thor. Because everyone hid, but Thor could only stand still. Boom, the Hulk kicked Thor directly from the space carrier. When the others saw this, they hid further. The Hulk also became more unscrupulous. Just when everyone on the space carrier was fighting for survival. Lin Yu has returned to the grocery store in his Camaro. Although this grocery store is not spacious, Lin Yu feels comfortable only when he is here. Maybe it's because I have lived here for a long time and got used to it. Or maybe it's the people who are closest to me here. Wanda, the younger sister who has lived in the orphanage with Lin Yu since she was a child, is almost Lin Yu's only relative in the world. After Lin Yu traveled to this world and occupied this body, he actually absorbed all the memories of the original owner along the way. At the same time, also inherited the feelings between Wanda and Wanda. So, although Wanda regards money as fate, and sometimes treats herself as her personal belongings like an old hen guarding the baby, Lin Yu never said a word of mind. That's because, in this world, Lin Yu may have many people who care. However, Wanda is always the closest one. It's also the one who shares our tribulations together, but never abandons. But, for some requirements, Lin Yu still cannot meet Wanda. For example, just as Lin Yu walked in, Wanda greeted him. Brother, you are back. I have made a lot of money recently. Would you like to change your glasses? Your eyes seem to have been worn for a long time. Wanda said with some shame. Today's sun seems to come out from the west. After making money for so long, it was the first time to buy something for myself. But, the thing chosen by Meow is not quite right. Own glasses, but baby, even if you change your sister, you can't change your glasses. Joke. Impossible. Thinking of this, Lin Yu was slightly taken aback. Something's wrong. I don't seem to take off my glasses. Lin Yu looked down. Really? Not picked. Lin Yu was terrified. Sins. Lin Yu hurriedly turned his head and quietly took off his glasses. On the opposite side, Wanda thought Lin Yu had agreed with her opinion and hurriedly wanted to take over the old glasses from Lin Yu. In an instant, the cold sweat on Lin Yu's forehead came out. This glasses, apart from the infinite mutation system, is probably my biggest secret. Lin Yu's hand shrank quickly. He tucked the glasses in his hand quickly into the pocket inside the coat. Little girl, you won't be allowed to say such things in the future. Lin Yu said righteously. Wanda was taken aback for a moment. Your brother, I am not a person who is greedy for wealth, and we have all walked through hard times together. Don't mention this kind of extravagance and waste in the future. Especially my glasses, although they are a bit old, they work very well, but you can't have the bad habit of throwing things away. Lin Yu's education is still so sharp. After Wanda was taken aback for a while, he suddenly felt that what the old man said made sense. The siblings are not the kind of people who like to be too material. Extravagance is not a good habit. Wanda nodded solemnly, and secretly said in his heart, as expected, he is still not as mature as his older brother. At this moment, Wanda suddenly noticed Mjolnir in Lin Yu's hands. Her eyes lit up suddenly. Brother, you have worked hard, let me help you get this hammer. I don't know why, Wanda seems to be too enthusiastic about Lin Yu. Lin Yu thought before and after. There can only be one reason. That is the arrival of Sharon. Before Sharon came, Wanda was definitely not like this. And now, she actually wanted to buy herself glasses, and she had to help herself with a hammer. There is something tricky. There is a trick. Before Lin Yu agreed, Wanda reached out and grabbed Mjolnir's hammer handle. Lin Yu hurriedly wanted to stop. This hammer can't be picked up by ordinary people. If you accidentally hurt your arm, it won't be good. But, at the moment, in Lin Yu's mind, he suddenly thought of the system prompt. Ding! Mjolnir in the hands of the host suddenly fell in love with this cute little sister, and wanted to get close to Wanda. Lin Yu was stunned for a moment. Wanda has snatched Mjolnir from Lin Yu's hands. I grabbed Mjolnir's hammer handle and snatched a circle, and then said in surprise, Brother, what is your hammer made of? Why does it feel so light? Wanda thought it was heavy, so I wanted to perform in front of Lin Yu. However, the hammer felt so light as soon as it started. Wanda suddenly became interested, picked up Mjolnir and held it in front of him, and looked up. At this time, Sharon also walked down from the second floor. Seeing the hammer in Wanda's hand, her face suddenly showed a trace of confusion. This hammer seems familiar. Sister, show me. Sharon stretched out her hand and said to Wanda. Hearing this cold roar, Lin Yu was shocked. What? Little girl, on this day, when I was not at home, what happened in this grocery store? Why these two people suddenly became so close? Why did Wanda suddenly change her attitude toward herself by 180 degrees? What is the reason? Morality is depraved or human nature is distorted? Do not. This is not the time to consider these. Lin Yu hurriedly reached out, trying to stop Sharon. This is Mjolnir. Its weight is immeasurable. If Sharon is not careful, she may hurt herself. However, at the moment, ding, Mjolnir suddenly fell in love with this young lady again, and wanted to get close to Sharon. Lin Yu's extended hand suddenly stopped in midair. And this time, Sharon has taken Mjolnir from Wanda. After all, Sharon is a high-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Naturally, he has seen some confidential information about Thor. At a glance, she seemed to remember where she had seen the picture of this hammer. Hey, boss, is your hammer a toy model of Mjolnir? It's so realistic. After speaking, Sharon threw Mjolnir up excitedly, drove a few laps in midair, and then easily received her hand. At the moment's Lin Yu. I don't know what to say anymore. Sharon's current behavior, if Thor sees him, I'm afraid he will go crazy. Ding, Mjolnir felt the feeling of happiness for the first time and decided to extend the strike time to 10 days. As for the original owner Thor, there is a young lady accompanied by his sister, no matter what he does. See this happy scene. Lin Yu suddenly felt that he should do something. This hammer seems to be a natural fit for staying in your own home. If you count Sharon, there are now 3 people in my own family. It unexpectedly wanted to get close to all 3 people. What does this mean? Isn't this obviously a signal released by Mjolnir? It seems that he is determined to betray Asgard, betray his former master Thor, and join the arms of the grocery store. This is throwing away the dark and throwing light. Lin Yu is not a hard-hearted person. Faced with such a simple request, such a cute hammer, Lin Yu decided. Satisfy it. Wanda, don't play the hammer, I will arrange a task for you. Lin Yu suddenly said to Wanda, who was studying Mjolnir with Sharon. After thinking about it a little bit, Lin Yu had an idea in his mind. This kind of thing, I am the best at it. Wanda was overjoyed and hurriedly asked, Brother, what mission? When both 733 and Sharon are both present, if you have something to find yourself first, that is petting. It's my preference for myself. Wanda was very happy. Hastily leaned in. However, Lin Yu was thinking about what was just now, and he didn't notice Wanda's excitement. After thinking about it a little bit again, Lin Yu said, You go buy some goods and make a beautiful cloak, the more gorgeous the better, and then find someone to build an axe out of iron. The bigger the better, the heavier the better. The axe and cloak are Thor's standard equipment. While arranging Wanda and Lin Yu, he picked up a piece of paper from the counter of the grocery store. On that piece of paper, I drew a picture of an axe. The pattern of the axe on the paper, in Lin Yu's eyes, resembled the storm axe for Thor that Nidalvo's last dwarf created in the later period of Marvel. However, Lin Yu's painting level is a bit average. After Wanda took the paper, he couldn't tell it was an axe for a while. Brother, what did you paint? Wanda asked. Axe, look back and let people engrave a few more words on the handle of the axe, it's called Storm Axe. Lin Yu smiled and said. Wanda was stunned by Lin Yu's words. But, how does this look like a sweep? Sweep. Lin Yu touched his head awkwardly. Then he said, Don't worry about so much, just follow this pattern. Regardless of whether it looks good or not, the important thing is momentum. The name is domineering enough. Brother, what do you want these 2 things for? Wanda asked. A gorgeous cloak and a big, heavy, and strange axe. These 2 combinations seem a little weird. Lin Yu didn't answer Wanda's question, but pretended to say in a profound way, Don't worry about so much, you can get these 2 things for me as soon as possible, and then put them in the most conspicuous position in our store, I am useful. By the way, give them a price and write 900 billion. Lin Yu smiled mysteriously and arranged again. Even Wanda was shocked when he heard this number. Brother is crazy, so expensive, who can afford it? If the black shop can be divided into levels, then my own grocery store should be considered the strongest in the universe, right? Lin Yu's brains are very good, especially when preparing yin people. Mjolnir, it seems that he can't run away long ago. But, what Lin Yu wants to solve is how to make Thor willingly give Mjolnir to himself. He has to be convinced. Lin Yu didn't want to anger the whole Asgard because he grabbed a hammer. So, can't grab it, can only be traded, the willing kind. The kind that even Odin has nothing to say. At the moment, Thor, who is being calculated by Lin Yu, is waiting hard for the rescue of S.H.I.E.L.D. The battle on the space carrier has basically ended. But at the very beginning, Thor was kicked off the space carrier by Rage's Hulk. Fortunately, as a member of the Aesir Protoss, his body is extremely strong. Although he fell from a height of 9 kilometers, he did not suffer too much damage. But, the question now is, without Mjolnir, Thor loses flight's ability. Thor can only raise his head and look at the fragments of the space carrier falling into the sky, and he can do nothing. Obviously, Loki and Barden have invaded the space carrier. However, Thor at the moment can only wait for rescue in place with a bitter expression on his face. Thor looked at the boots that had been taken off beside him, crying without tears. Especially Meow, why didn't you take off this boot that suddenly became as heavy as a mountain earlier? In that case, it would not be kicked from the sky by the Hulk like a target. In the above words, at least I can help a little bit. But, speaking of these boots, Thor is even more puzzled. How could this thing suddenly become so heavy? What is going wrong? Is there any connection with the weight of your hammer? Thor was lost in thought. The battle on the space carrier soon ended. After all, Loki didn't want to fight a crazy monster like the Hulk. He just wanted to make Avengers messy, so that he could buy time to open the portal. After bringing back the Mind Scepter with Barton, Loki left the spaceship in a plane. His plan is basically successful, although there was a little accident in the process. However, the ending is always good. But, thinking of the accident, the more he thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. Why does that mortal know his true identity? Why did you directly hit your pain point as soon as you exported it? It stands to reason that Thor should not reveal his identity. How did he know? And also, why didn't Lin Yu press the button, but the cell door under his feet suddenly opened? Thinking about it, Loki felt a little scared. If I really hit the ground at such a high place, I guess I might not be able to survive. Fortunately, Barton was right next to him, and he happened to see his fall. Otherwise, the consequences could be disastrous. At the moment, Loki is already thinking, if I see that mortal in the future, do you want to avoid it? Barton, how is Eric's portal completed? Loki turned his head and asked Hawkeye Barton. He decided that he still didn't want to worry about Lin Yu. A mortal, even if it's a little weird, can't decide the overall situation. When Barton heard this question, a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Then he said, almost all preparations have been made, and it is estimated that all will be completed at noon today. Hearing Barton's report, Loki's mood became excited again. I also forgot all the unhappiness I had before. When the portal opens, Chidori's army will come, and then the entire Earth will be its own territory. What Avengers, what S.H.I.E.L.D., all must surrender to their feet. Okay, let's go to the Stark mansion now, Loki ordered. Barton on the side directly grabbed the driver's position. Driving the plane abruptly speeded up and flew quickly in the direction of Stark Industrial Building. But, what Barton and Loki didn't know was, just when the two flew to the Stark Industrial Building. It's on 58th Street in Manhattan, which is only a few kilometers away from the Stark Industrial Building. In front of a very humble grocery store, Lin Yu leaned on the door frame, frowned, and looked towards the roof of the Stark Industrial Building. In his heart, he was thinking about a very serious problem. If Chidori's army does come, will my grocery store be too close to the battlefield? Lin Yu has never worried about his life safety. After all, my system is not vegetarian. Especially after awakening the negative mutation ability, it is simply a bug-like existence. As for Wanda, don't worry. Scarlet Witch's ability, even in the late Marvel, is the top existence. Even Thanos, who has collected 5 infinite gems, is hardly Wanda's opponent. Moreover, under the influence of the system, Wanda's strength seems to be much faster than the time in the movie. Therefore, it is naturally impossible for these Chitauri miscellaneous soldiers to hurt Wanda. As for Sharon, it's a little weaker. Among the three, only Sharon had no plugins. She is just an agent. Although among ordinary people, it should be regarded as the top powerhouse, but in the face of such a large-scale war, it is estimated to be a cannon fodder level. But, Lin Yu turned his head, looked at Sharon who was holding Mjolnir in his hand, and suddenly felt that his worries were a bit redundant. Just now, Lin Yu has already explained to Sharon. He talked about the possible chaos and the invasion of alien life, and put Mjolnir back into her hands. Lin Yu has only one arrangement for Sharon. That is, when you encounter an enemy, you throw the hammer out at the opponent's face. Simple and violent. The only thing Lin Yu worries about is his small grocery store. Because, I have become accustomed to living here, and it has become Lin Yu home. For this reason, Lin Yu sent Erha and Bumblebee to the door. And ordered them, if they encounter aliens, they will kill them on the spot. Seeing a dog and a car at the door engrossedly, Lin Yu's hanging heart was finally let go. Lin Yu returned to the grocery store again. Chidori's invasion hasn't arrived yet, and I don't know when it will come. The bored Lin Yu sat next to the computer and played computer games. World of Warcraft. This is the only familiar game Lin Yu found in this world. It seems like the only connection between myself and the previous life. It's more like a sustenance. This game should be regarded as Lin Yu's biggest hobby in the world. Lin Yu wore glasses and watched a beautiful woman with a very good figure and appearance leave the door of the grocery store. Then he took off his glasses and looked down. The computer screen turned black and white again. In the center of the screen, there are many simple tombstones. The dungeon, the group of special meows is gone. Will the TMD tank pull hatred? Will the priest add blood? Tank and pastor, report me my name, I'm going to your house to blow. Lin Yu said angrily. He walked away a little bit, but was destroyed by the group again. This is the 5th time that the regiment has been wiped out today. Definitely, today there were only 5 female customers who were pretty decent. At this moment, a weak voice suddenly came from the headset. It seems that you are the priest. On the SHIELD space carrier. After several hours of busy work, finally with the help of Tony Stark, the space carrier returned to its normal sailing state again. But this chaos caused everyone to lose their best chance to deal with Loki. And after this Loki attack, the Avengers' strength dropped sharply. The strongest foreign aid Thor lost his hammer, and his strength was almost several times weaker. And Dr. Banner, who turned into the Hulk, didn't know where he went in the chaos. The whereabouts are unknown. As for the consultant Lin Yu, he ran earlier than anyone else. After the confusion, in the whole Avengers, there were almost only 2 or 3 big cats and kittens left. At the moment, inside the space carrier that has become a little dilapidated, the United States Captain Steve and Tony are chatting. The 2 people who had disliked each other originally, after cooperating in response to the attack, their relationship seemed to ease. Loki has turned this battle into a personal vengeance, Tony said excitedly. But it's not the point is how to stop him, Steve said. However, Tony seemed to have thought of something. He frowned and continued. No, this is the point, this is Loki's purpose. Why is he going to our nest? Steve replied suspiciously. Definitely is to defeat us. Tony Stark continued to analyze. Yes, this is indeed his idea. He knows that we are a stumbling block to his great cause, right? This is his hard knot. He wants to defeat us. He also wants us to watch him win this war. What he wants is not only to defeat us, but also to the audience. Tony's eyes brightened, and he seemed to think of Loki's true purpose. He wants to be the protagonist, he wants someone to give him flowers, he has to sway around, and he also has a towering monument with his name engraved on it. At this point, Tony was stunned. These words reminded him of himself. How does it feel to be yourself? I also want to be the protagonist, I want to be noticed by everyone, and I have already written my name on the building. It seems that Loki has the same character as himself. They are the kind of people who like to be the protagonist and who like to be followed. Tony's heart was taken aback. He thought about it. According to Loki's character and style, he must have gone to the highest and most eye-catching place in New York. The same as my own thoughts. Stark Industrial Building. After a few minutes, wearing a steel battle suit, Tony rose from the space carrier of the SHIELD toward the Stark Industrial Building. Behind him, Steve and Black Widow, as well as Thor who lost his hammer, followed in the SHIELD plane. And at the moment, just when the Avengers went to the Stark Industrial Building, on the roof of the Stark Industrial Building, Dr. Eric has completed the final commissioning of the portal. Everything is ready. After a few minutes, Tony finally landed on the roof of the Stark Industrial Building. At the moment, Tesseract was fully activated, and Tony's attack could not prevent the portal from opening. Loki has been waiting here for a long time. Tony decided to switch to his latest Mark 7. Subsequently, Tony took off his steel battle suit, and then talked to Loki for delay while making Jarvis prepare a new steel battle suit. Would you like a drink? Tony picked up the wine glass on the table, poured a glass of wine, and put on the 2 bracelets that control the new generation of steel battle suits on the table by the way. Loki seemed to understand Tony's thoughts. After all, the 2 of them had extremely similar personalities. He smiled slightly and said, "It's no use delaying time." Tony showed no weakness. No, not procrastinating, but to scare, I'm here to scare you. The smile on Loki's face became stronger. He slowly walked to the edge of the glass window on the top floor, looked at the sky, and said, "The Kitari army is coming, no one can stop it." The tesseract outside has already released a blue light. It is estimated that in less than 2 minutes, the Kitari army will arrive. At this time, is there anything I'm afraid of? Loki spread out his hands confidently and said, "As long as the Kitar army arrives, the entire Earth will be in his own pocket." "Avengers," Tony replied. Hearing the name, Loki's mouth rose even more. "Seems to hear something funny. Avengers, I've seen it just now, and it seems like that's all there is to it." Tony smiled similarly, and said, "I admit that our running in took a lot of time, but let me count it for you. We have your brother Thor. Loki, I seem to see him fall off that ship. Tony, we also have a legendary super soldier, the captain of the United States. Loki, there are thousands of soldiers in the Kitari army. Tony, we still have a big guy who can frighten dead man. Loki, I seem to see the big guy and don't know where he went." Tony was speechless. When did Loki become so debating? "We also have a consultant who owns a terrible pet dog." Loki laughed straight out. "You Avengers, there are really any freaks. Can the waste from raising a puppy join you?" At the moment, Lin Yu's grocery store on 58th Avenue in Manhattan. Lin Yu, who was playing the game, suddenly heard a system prompt in his mind. "Ding, Loki, the god of tricks, speaks wildly to the host, with a disrespectful tone. There seems to be something wrong with the soul scepter in his hand, and he automatically attacked its owner." The roof of Stark building. The soul scepter in Loki's hand suddenly lit up with blue light. Loki was taken aback. The smile on his face suddenly seemed to freeze. This soul scepter clearly did not control it. But why does it emit blue light by itself? This is a precursor to an attack. Loki was completely blinded. There were only himself and Tony Stark, and he didn't want to attack him. He clearly wants to use the soul scepter to control the other party, so that he can contain the Avengers. There is absolutely no intention to kill each other. At the same time, opposite Loki, Tony was also shocked. Seeing the soul scepter suddenly lit up, he instinctively wanted to get under the table. "This Loki, don't play cards according to the routine. It is clear that you have to do it before you finish speaking, it is simply unreasonable." But, obviously he had no time to avoid it. The attack of the Mind Scepter is extremely fast. A blue light suddenly lit up. Boom! The blue light hit Loki's chest directly while Tony was stunned. Moreover, it is very powerful. He directly knocked Loki out of the glass window on the top floor of the Stark Industrial Building. Tony was completely dumbfounded. "What? Not attacking yourself? This Loki, hit yourself at such a disagreement?" Tony rubbed his eyes in disbelief again. That's right, Loki was no longer in front of him. And there is a big hole in the glass window next to it. Tony's ears moved slightly, and it seemed that someone could still hear Roar yelling loudly. What? Boom! Something seems to have fallen to the ground. But Loki's bad luck did not affect the opening of the portal. On the roof of the Stark building, Tesseract burst out a blue beam of light, rushing straight into the sky. Over New York City, a dark portal suddenly opened. On the other side of the portal, countless Zeta Swiss soldiers can be vaguely seen, waiting in full battle. The war is about to come. At the moment, Tony hurriedly put away the regretful expression on his face. The portal has been opened, and Loki is no longer important. The war has already begun. Tony hurriedly put on a brand new steel battlesuit and rushed towards the Chitauri fighters who had already begun to attack. In the distance, an airplane landed slowly. Thor and Steve and others walked out of it. They have also seen the portal that is gradually getting bigger, and the Zeta Swiss soldiers who are rushing in frantically. Their spirits also tightened immediately. At the same time, the streets of New York have also become chaotic. The horrible and ugly Chitauri made these innocent New Yorkers dared to be deeply despaired. Countless pedestrians scattered and fled for their lives. Over their heads, hundreds of Chitauri fighters, driving their flight machines, were killing and setting fire everywhere in New York City. Completely messed up. At the moment, S.H.I.E.L.D. is not the only one who is watching this battle. There is also the Supreme Magician Ancient One far away in Kamar Taj. As the only Supreme Magician on the Earth, her duty is to protect the Earth from external evil forces. Obviously, this time Chidori will not stand idly by when he comes to Ancient One. But, not all the magicians who guard the earth can be dispatched. Their biggest responsibility is to guard the 3 holy places. Only the 3 holy places are intact to prevent the invasion of multi-universe. Especially the terrifying Dark Lord Dormammu. Compared to the Zeteric army, Dormammu is the real horror. If it is invaded by Dormammu, the entire earth will become darkness. So, after arranging the magicians' respective tasks, Ancient One set off with a dozen of the best of the magician. Among them, there is one of her most proud disciples, Modu Magician. With the sling ring, I lightly painted in front of me, and a portal appeared in front of Ancient One and Mordor. The two went one after the other, followed by more than a dozen disciples behind, through the portal and directly into the holy place in New York. There are 3 holy places in the area. They are the holy place in London, the holy place in Hong Kong, and the holy place in New York. The place where Chidori appeared this time was in the center of New York. It's not too far from New York's holy place. So, as soon as I arrived at the holy place in New York, Ancient One had already seen hordes of Zeta Swiss soldiers bombarding everywhere. She hurriedly said to her disciple Mordor, "Take someone to protect the bottom, and I will protect the sky above the holy place in New York." Quote exclamation mark quote. Mordo nodded solemnly, and began to arrange for the magicians. And Ancient One came directly to the roof of the holy place in New York. Whenever a Zeta Swiss soldier who does not have long eyes comes, she will use powerful magic methods to directly kill them. But, because she wanted to protect the holy place in New York, she didn't have the energy to deal with the increasing number of Zeta Swiss soldiers under the portal. And as the number of Zeta Swiss soldiers increased, her brows became deeper and deeper. This time, for mankind, it will probably be a disaster of huge amounts of. Human power is still too weak. In a secret base underneath the New York military base, General Ross is watching the sky over New York City through military satellites. At the moment General Ross, although the skin on his face has almost recovered, but the eyebrows and hair still haven't grown. It seems that the high temperature last time has completely damaged the hair follicles on his head and face. I'm afraid I will never grow hair and eyebrows in this life. In his heart, the hatred for Lin Yu was like an erupting volcano, which could not be extinguished at all. He has not yet retaliated against Lin Yu temporarily, just because he has bigger plans. At the moment, in this restored underground base, there are separate rooms. In every room, there are a lot of complicated machines. Some rooms are still undergoing the transformation of super soldiers. With the consent of the top military leaders, General Ross's super soldier plan has been thoroughly carried out. And, after the attack on the New York military base last time, General Ross is no longer in charge of the New York military district. His only duty now is to build an army composed entirely of super fighters. Do this wholeheartedly. Now, the building of the super soldier army has been going on for more than 10 days. At this time, in a huge amounts of training ground in the deepest part of the underground base, 50 super soldiers were standing neatly. Each of these super fighters is more than 2 meters high, and the body is as strong as a cow. The most frightening thing is that there is a hint of green luster on their body skin. This shows that they are all super soldiers who are genetically modified from the Hulk. Their bodies also have a part of the Hulk ability. Although the individual strength and the Hulk are incomparable, their numbers are enough to make up for the lack of individual strength. I am afraid that even if the Hulk appears in front of them, he will definitely be beaten to find teeth. This army composed entirely of super soldiers can definitely be regarded as the strongest army on Earth. Zhao Hao Hao. At the moment, one of General Rose's deputies suddenly knocked on the door and walked into General Rose's office. "General, 50 super soldiers are ready, please give instructions." Hearing the report from his subordinates, General Rose showed an excited smile on his face. "Taste the courage by yourself, and finally have the army that dreams of wanting for. So, nowadays, let your own super soldiers appear in the eyes of the world for the first time. Just let yourself be the savior. Definitely pregnant." General Ross actually didn't want to be the savior. He didn't bother to care about the life and death of ordinary civilians. His main purpose is actually to test the power of these super soldiers. And those Zeta Swiss soldiers are obviously very good opponents. Now the 50 super soldiers in the underground base are all the super soldiers he has built in the past 10 days. Give me an order, all will be dispatched. Let the world, no, let the entire universe see the benefits of an army composed entirely of super soldiers. General Ross gave an order, and 50 super soldiers were dispatched. On the battlefield, at the moment, the battle situation was completely one-sided. Without Thor of Mjolnir, there is no way to flight, and no way to summon powerful lightning. He is completely an unskilled super infantry. At this time, Dr. Banner had not come yet. In addition, Hawkeye, who should have been in the Avengers camp, has not yet escaped the control of the psychic scepter. So, the situation of the Avengers is at stake. On the SHIELD space carrier. Listening to the report, Nick Fury frowned and looked at the big screen in front of him with a heavy heart. On the big screen, Tony was fighting alone in the sky. And at the moment, Tony's steel battlesuit was already covered with scars. All the Kitari army came from the air. Tony was the only air force on the side of the Avengers, and he faced the most enemies. No, I can't stop it at all, there are too many enemies. Tony said to all the Avengers in the communicator. He has tried his best, but the number of enemies seems to be infinite. On the ground, Steve and Natasha Romanoff are also facing the test of huge amounts of. Although their individual strengths are very strong, they have already been injured in the face of countless enemies. Steve also understands that if this goes on, it will definitely not work. The defense is too weak. Steve opened the communication with Nick Fury and said, Chief Fury, you have to find a way, our strength is not enough to resist this number of enemies. Now, even the captain of the United States Steve can only ask Nick Fury for help. He too was helpless. On the space carrier, Nick Fury was also very anxious after receiving Steve's call for help. But, all the armed forces of the SHIELD have gone to the battlefield. Including all fighters, as well as agents that can be dispatched. But, these forces are too weak for this war. It has no effect at all. At this moment, a trace of hesitation appeared on the Hill agent's face behind Nick Fury, and then said, Chief, do you want to ask for help from Consultant Lin? His pet dog is so strong. Hearing what the Hill agent said, Nick Fury shook his head and said, this is a war between races. Individual power can't do much. Moreover, I know the character of Lin Yu very well. It's definitely not the kind of guy who is willing to fight for strangers. After thinking about it, Nick Fury said again, but even if we don't find him, he will definitely take action, because sooner or later the battlefield will spread to his grocery store. Then, for his sister and Sharon, I will do it too. Nick Fury, as the leader of the most core force in the Marvel world, his individual strength is not strong, not even comparable to most of his elite agents. But, there is a reason why he can become such an important person. At least, he is very accurate. For Lin Yu, he saw clearly. Lin Yu is not a saint, not even an ordinary person on the street. He will repay the Canthus, and he doesn't care about the life and death of ordinary people, but he is extremely protective of the shortcomings of those around him. If he threatened him with killing strangers all over the world, he would dismiss it. But, if he wants to move the people around him, he will definitely be CDAH mad. So, Nick Fury concluded, Lin Yu will definitely make a move. Because this war is no longer a small-scale battle. The entire New York, and even the entire Earth, will be forced to participate in this war. And Lin Yu in New York, as well as his younger sisters Wanda and Sharon, can never be alone. When the time comes, it's up to Lin Yu to make a move. Nick Fury has always felt that Lin Yu is definitely not as simple as it seems on the surface. That pet dog and that car that can shapeshifting are definitely not Lin Yu's all means. Hearing Chief Fury's explanation, Hill nodded thoughtfully. However, her focus is not whether Lin Yu will make a move. But, in the secretary's words just now, it seemed that Sharon was also included. Will he really shoot for Sharon? Hill was lost in thought. Just then, on the computer screen in front of Nick Fury and Hill, something new suddenly appeared. I don't know when, some guys in uniforms suddenly appeared on the battlefield. These people, wearing camouflage uniforms, have masks that cover almost half of their faces, and they can't see anything at all. But, their size is very easy to identify. Because the bodies of these people are extremely strong. They are all taller than Chitauri soldiers. Who are they? Nick Fury was startled. He seems to feel that these guys in camouflage uniforms are a bit familiar. After thinking about it for a while, Nick Fury remembered it. These guys are very similar to the soldiers Lin Yu said before attacking him. No, it's not very similar. The body height and the faint green on the skin are exactly the same. These guys, is it possible that Chengdu is a super soldier made by the guy Rose? In an instant, Nick Fury figured it out. No wonder the guy Rose hasn't heard anything lately. It turned out to be hiding to engage these super soldiers. But, seeing the appearance of these super soldiers, Nick Fury didn't feel any joy. Although the screen in front of them showed that the super soldiers were fighting with the Zeta Swiss soldiers as soon as they joined the battlefield. But, Nick Fury has been dealing with Rose for a long time. He knows what Rose is best. It is impossible for him to use all his power to fight against foreign invasions. Even if it is an order from a high-level military, I am afraid it will not work well. He was in this way when he was in the New York military base. At that time, almost the entire New York military base was almost turned into his personal armament. On the screen, Nick Fury also saw a hint. Each of these powerful super soldiers is extremely strong. Even if several Chidori soldiers join together, they are not opponents at all. With their bare hands, they can easily solve the enemies around them. But, they did not rush to the center of the battlefield. Instead, it has been wandering around the battlefield. Dozens of super soldiers gathered together without any intention of rushing in to kill the enemy. Do not. They are not here to kill the enemy, they are here to train. Nick Fury realized Rose's purpose in an instant. The addition of these super soldiers did not have much impact on the battle situation. Because they didn't try their best to fight at all. The roof of the Holy Place building in New York. Ancient One also saw these super soldiers who had just appeared for the first time. As an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years, she sees it more thoroughly than Nick Fury. For the first time, she saw that these strong soldiers weren't really here to fight. And, when he saw the super soldiers, a feint of disgust suddenly appeared on his face. These guys seemed to have some unpleasant smells on her body. As the portal gets bigger and bigger, the huge Leviathan monster also flew in from the portal. These Leviathans are Chidori's most terrifying war machine. They are huge, with thick armor and strong defense. Moreover, they are good at flying, and they can transport hundreds of Zeteri fighters at once. After seeing these Leviathan beasts, Tony's head was big. Although he was exhausted, he could only cheer up and meet this Leviathan behemoth. Jarvis, help me analyze the weakness of this guy. While Tony was flying, he asked Jarvis to scan the opponent's body, looking for a place to break through. However, obviously this big guy has no weaknesses. But, there is still good news. After a few minutes of fighting, Dr. Banner suddenly appeared on the battlefield. He picked up the motorcycle and came to the front of Steve, Natasha Romanoff and others with a calm expression. Heard the news. Tony smiled for the first time since the war began. Then, Tony said to all the Avengers in the communicator, "Come on. Let the carnival begin." At the same time, just when Avengers finally ushered in the Hulk with strong combat effectiveness, Lin Yu's grocery store finally ushered in the first Zeta Swiss soldier to visit. But, different from the panic of other citizens, the three people in the grocery store looked a little excited. Especially Sharon, who just discovered that the hammer in his hand can release lightning, is already impatient. When the enemy finally arrived, her eyes lit up. Definitely. Sharon is not the most anxious yet. The most anxious is Erha. Looking at the overwhelming Zeta Swiss soldiers in the center of New York in the distance, the snails in its mouth have already flowed all over the place. Erha recently got fat again. The appetite has greatly increased. The Zeta Swiss soldier, who just came to the door of the grocery store with a gun, doesn't seem to know that he has become a sweet pastry in the eyes of one person and one dog. Dog, don't move, it's mine. Sharon saw Erha's body suddenly lit up with a touch of green, and hurriedly grabbed Mjolnir and rushed out. Chapter 71. Erha still respects this new mistress. Although there is not much contact time, it has already understood that this woman seems to be planning to live here for a long time. And his owner did not show any rejection. So, after meeting with Sharon, Erha would also shake her fat buttocks and show great hospitality. But, The food problem is not within the scope of its comedy. If Lin Yu stopped it aloud, it might be so scared that it would retract immediately. But Sharon hasn't had that authority yet. Before Sharon stepped out of the grocery store, Erha's head had already turned into a huge amounts of dog head. At the moment's 2 hectares. The transformation is not over yet. Its image is like the body of a Erha with the head of a hell 3-headed dog. It looks extremely funny. Even the Chidori soldier was stunned. Chidori was originally a race that can share memories, so they have a wealth of knowledge. Before they attacked the Earth, they had already understood and studied life on the Earth. Naturally, I know a creature like a dog. But this Chidori soldier did not expect that this ordinary dog, who was almost considered to have no combat ability, would turn into this look. If he weren't wearing a mask, he would probably laugh out. At the moment's 2 hectares. Not only was his body extremely uncoordinated, but he also ran towards the Chidori soldier with his short legs. Somewhat silly look. But the Zeta Swiss soldier did not show mercy because of Erha's appearance. This is a war after all. He will not allow any unknown creatures to approach him. Seeing Erha running straight towards him, he raised the weapon in his hand and fired. A blue laser suddenly appeared from the front of the weapon. Instantly hit Erha's green head. However, to the surprise of the Chidori soldier, his weapon failed to leave a trace on that funny head. Not even a bit of the skin is broken. The Chidori soldiers hurriedly raised their weapons again. Aimed at Erha, but, this time, without waiting for him to shoot again. A dazzling light suddenly appeared in the grocery store. Sharon was afraid that she would not be able to catch up, and already held Mjolnir, releasing a bolt of lightning in the air. She really wants to test whether the lightning released on Mjolnir is strong or not. Seeing that Erha is very close to that guy, she can only use this almost cheating method. Although the lightning is not very thick. But the speed is very fast. In an instant, it hit the Chidori soldier who was about to shoot again. I saw a few sparks burst out of the Chidori soldier's body, and accompanied by a violent shaking, he was about to collapse to the ground. Chidori is different from humans. They are cyborgs. Their bodies have all undergone mechanical transformation, with both flesh and blood and a part of mechanical bodies. So, what they fear most is lightning. The strong electric current burned the mechanical parts of them instantly. It also led to the instant death of this Chidori soldier. But, before his body fell to the ground, Orhana's fat body seemed to explode with terrifying power, a jump, and a bite directly on the soldier's head. Then, under the stunned gaze of Sharon and Wanda, they swallowed the Chidori soldier whole. Although both women know that Erha is different. But, after seeing this scene, they were all stunned. This is the first time they have seen Erha cannibalism. No, that's not a human being. But at least it is a humanoid creature. This kind of shock is not inferior to the first time I knew there were gods in this world. The scariest thing is, when Erha directly swallowed the Chidori soldier whole into his stomach, it looked like a husky again. And its stomach hasn't changed a bit. Where did such a big Chidori soldier go? Both women turned their eyes to Lin Yu. They can only hope that Lin Yu will give an answer. But, obviously Lin Yu didn't know. Although Lin Yu has seen Erha cannibalism many times. However, he really didn't know where the people who were eaten by Erha went. Lin Yu spread his hands, knowing nothing, don't ask me anything. Seeing Lin Yu's appearance, the two women suddenly turned their eyes to the bumblebee outside the door, which was still in the form of a car. These days, Lin Yu has introduced Bumblebee to the two of them. So, they all know the technological strength of Hornet that surpasses the Earth countless times. Lin Yu doesn't know, then this Bumblebee who has been mingling with Erha all day should know it. But, Bumblebee saw the questioning gaze of the two women, and immediately activated it, slowly stepped back a few meters, and left the eyes of the two women. Bumblebee actually has a high IQ, he also understands the meaning of two women. But, Bumblebee didn't know where the guy who was eaten by Erha went. Because this is no longer what science can explain. Erha's belly is a bottomless pit. And, since Bumblebee appeared next to Lin Yu, he has no longer believed in science. In front of my master, science is a lie. Otherwise, how can humans survive in places where there is no oxygen? Seeing Erha and Sharon scrambling to each other, Lin Yu was finally relieved. He quietly returned to the back of the bar. continue to immerse himself in playing online games. Lin Yu estimates that in this situation, even if you don't have yourself, this grocery store is probably the safest place in New York. Simply, Lin Yu put on the headphones directly. Concentrate on the game. As if this war has nothing to do with me. On the space carrier, Nick Fury arranged a special agent to monitor the movement near Lin Yu's grocery store. He wants to know Lin Yu's shot the first time. He felt that Lin Yu would take action to protect the two women Sharon and Wanda sooner or later. But Nick Fury didn't know. The situation in the grocery store now seems a bit weird. It is impossible for Lin Yu to take the initiative. There is no such opportunity at all. Even if the fight really started, it is estimated that the two women shot for Lin Yu. No, there is a dog and a car. At the moment, a more terrifying scene appeared on the big screen in front of Nick Fury. Countless Leviathan beasts ran out from the portal. At a glance, there are about 7 or 8. Moreover, it seems that there is more behind the portal. Nick Fury's mood has become worse and worse. The situation is getting more and more difficult. Hill, are the super soldiers in Raw still wandering around? Nick Fury asked. Hill was assigned 2 jobs by Nick Fury. One is to pay attention to those super soldiers. The other is watching the movement in front of Lin Yu's grocery store. Hearing the chief ask himself, Hill hurriedly replied, Director, they are still acting on the periphery as before, and have no intention of getting close to the center of the battlefield. Hearing Hill's answer, Nick Fury had no hope for those super fighters. The guy Rose has never done anything good. What about the grocery store? Nick Fury asked, frowning again. Hill hurriedly zoomed in on the video screen in front of the grocery store and took a closer look. Then he said, there seems to be no change. After taking a closer look, Hill said again, it seems that there is no Chidori near the grocery store, not even a dead body. Hearing Hill's report, Nick Fury's face suddenly showed a hint of confusion. It stands to reason, it's impossible, right? Manhattan's 58th Street is not far from the city center. How could there be no Chidori soldiers patronizing there? But, not waiting for Nick Fury to express his doubts, the Hill agent beside him suddenly changed his face. Pointing to the screen in front of her, she said, Director, a Leviathan went to the grocery store. Chief, a Leviathan monster is heading towards the grocery store. Hill agent pointed to the screen in front of her and said loudly. That huge Leviathan beast almost obscures the sky. In front of its huge body, Lin Yu's grocery store is like a small thing. But, hearing Hill's report, Nick Fury's face was not surprised but delighted. He is helpless now, and Lin Yu seems to be the last hope. Although this is a war, individual forces can't help much. However, after Lin Yu's pet dog transforms, he can still relieve the pressure on the battlefield. Hope gradually appeared in Nick Fury's eyes. He desperately hoped that these Chidori, who were not long-eyed, would disturb the quiet of the grocery store. When Leviathan suddenly appeared on 58th Street in Manhattan, Erha, Bumblebee, Sharon, and Wanda, who were standing at the door, were all seen right away. But, at this time, they had already killed many Zeta Swiss soldiers. Although the corpses were all eaten by Erha for 737, the goal of practicing hand was also achieved. At the moment, see the huge Leviathan coming soon. The two of them, 1 dog and 1 car, both seemed a little excited. Definitely, the 2 women are most excited. Because when Erha saw such a big monster, it had no appetite anymore. It's like a human being. After eating 30 skewers of lamb, he suddenly found a roasted whole lamb. I'm almost full, even if I roast the whole beef, I don't have much idea. At this time, Sharon, who was still in excitement, hurried forward 2 steps and came to the front of the crowd. There was a big smile on her face. It seems that the Leviathan in front of him is not terrible at all. Look at me, Sharon yelled and raised Mjolnir in his hand. In the sky, a dark cloud suddenly began to appear. Although it doesn't have the big scene of the dark clouds when Thor used it, it is also quite powerful. Lightning thundered in the dark clouds, as if endless thunder is gathering. Far away, when dark clouds began to gather over the grocery store, Thor suddenly seemed to feel something. He hurriedly raised his head and looked at the distant sky. In my heart, there seemed to be 10,000 grass mud horses crashing past. How could he not recognize these dark clouds? In Temo's familiarity. Moreover, Thor can even feel the lightning in those dark clouds, and has some subtle feelings with himself. He was originally Thor. Although Mjolnir was lost, he was still able to control the power of lightning. It's just that Thor hasn't fully awakening his own power yet. So, can only sigh with excitement. Definitely, there is still very lonely in my heart. My own Mjolnir, it turned out not only to be snatched away. It seems that I have recognized the Lord again. This blow was too serious for Thor. Thor, who was standing in the center of the battlefield, simply sat directly on the ground. Head down, his shoulders twitched slightly. I don't know if I'm crying, or I'm a little cramped when I'm tired. Grocery store. Lin Yu is still playing the game leisurely. He didn't worry at all about the fighting outside. A bumblebee, a three-headed hell dog, a Sharon holding Mjolnir, plus a Scarlet Witch Wanda who hasn't used all his strength yet, but has already revealed its rostrum. These four, standing together, if anything else can happen, it would be weird. So, Lin Yu seemed to be heartless, still playing games to his heart's content. People who don't know think Lin Yu is bullying women and dogs. But, only Lin Yu knows. In this situation, if I want to be ahead, I have no chance. The thunder in the sky gathers more and more. Sharon's face became more and more excited. She felt that she had never been so cool. I have never liked fighting like this. With a powerful weapon, it is really addictive to fighting. However, just when Sharon was about to attract those thunders, behind her, suddenly a red light appeared. Do not know when. Wanda was already floating slowly. Her body was filled with red light, like red ribbons, wrapped around her. The long skirt is flying and the hair is fluttering. There was a sly smile on her face. How can Sharon steal the limelight every time? Although the relationship between the two women is much better than before, there is still a competitive relationship. And, Wanda also wants to test her own strength. To what extent? I look at the store in the grocery store every day, and I don't know how much I can do if I don't go out. The red light instantly hit Leviathan's head. The terrifying shockwave dissipated around. At the same time, under this powerful impact, Leviathan's body seemed as if a high-speed train had hit the mountain. In an instant, the armor on his body was torn apart. The huge body was suddenly lifted into the air. At this moment, the lightning that Sharon controlled finally reached Leviathan. The violent electric current was constantly hitting Leviathan's body. The Chitauri fighters transported in Leviathan's body were all killed in an instant roar. Leviathan's huge body also seemed to have lost all power and fell from the sky. Boom! Accompanied by the violent sound, the whole earth trembled fiercely a few times. At this moment, on the SHIELD space carrier, Nick Fury also saw this gorgeous battle scene through the monitoring screen on the big screen for the first time. The flying red dress and the dazzling lightning made Nick Fury stunned. He knew that the powerful force around Lin Yu was definitely not only the dog in the car. Also know that Wanda seems to have some special ability. But never thought of it. His sister is so strong. The red light couldn't see what it was at all. But obviously, that is the power in Wanda's body. It's not an external force. And, except Wanda, Sharon's performance also shocked Nick Fury. She was able to control Mjolnir. The terrifying lightning was almost exactly the same as when Thor controlled it. Doesn't that mean that humans can also have the power of gods? Then Thor is a fart. What about Asgard? Although Sharon seems to be walking too close to Lin Yu now. But, after all, she still has the identity of SHIELD agent. And, most importantly, she is human. It's not those gods who are illusory and far away. Hurry up, contact Sharon and let her help. Nick Fury hurriedly arranged. Although Lin Yu could not move, Sharon is different. After so many years of colleague relations, he believes that as long as he speaks, Sharon will definitely give himself face. With Sharon's terrifying power, he can definitely play a big role in the current battle. Grocery store. Nick Fury's call has not come. Sharon and Wanda are still in the excitement of destroying a giant Leviathan. Airha and Bumblebee are also watching the huge amounts of Leviathan's corpse. And at the moment, behind the counter in the grocery store. But Lin Yu's face suddenly showed a touch of control. Because he was still playing dungeon with the team just now, and suddenly discovered that the boss who was fighting with them had disappeared. The entire computer screen is full of question marks played by teammates in the game. What about boss? Why is it missing? Yes, is there a bug in the game? The teammates in the game are typing. Obviously, it's not that the boss on Lin Yu's computer disappeared. But in front of everyone, there is no shadow of that boss. Just now, because Leviathan's huge body fell to the ground shook a bit, and Lin Yu's computer also shook suddenly. After the shock, the boss disappeared. And this time, in Lin Yu's mind, the system prompt sounded suddenly. Ding, your computer was frightened by Chidori and developed a desire to protect yourself. So, you summoned the boss Gul'dan on the computer screen to help it repel the hateful invaders. Lin Yu is a gaming idiot. Playing games is just relaxing because of boredom. But, even if you are an idiot, you know that the boss in the game is fake. But now, that boss turned out to be real. Is your own computer so temperamental? If you don't agree, summon the boss in the game to protect it. This is much bigger than your own card face. At the moment, in Lin Yu's eyes, a line of small print has appeared above his computer. Name, computer, variation level, level 5. Mutation direction. In an emergency, you can summon things in your body. Special conditions. The summoning can only be carried out when the computer is severely threatened, and the summoned item level does not exceed the computer mutation level. The existence time of the summoned object is 1 hour, and it will return to the computer after 1 hour. Quote. Seeing these small characters on the top of the computer, Lin Yu was shocked. This particular Meow turned out to be a 5th level mutant. I actually triggered that 1% chance. This is the terrifying and small chance that I set off for the second time. Last time, it was when Erha mutated into the 3-headed dog of hell. Lin Yu was completely blindfolded. He snapped a line on the computer keyboard and sent it to the team chat box. What is the boss that we played just now? Nor can I blame Lin Yu for not knowing that he is really inattentive when playing games. After all, you need to wear glasses often to observe the surrounding environment. Sometimes I am excited to watch, and I will watch it for a while. For this reason, Lin Yu is always scolded in the game. But, Lin Yu is still unhappy. At this moment, after Lin Yu's question was typed out, the teammates responded one after another. Oh my god, after playing for a long time, you don't even know what boss you are playing. Definitely it is Gul'dan. Seeing the answers from his teammates, Lin Yu reacted. Yes, it's Gul'dan. Just now when the system prompted, it was Gul'dan. Lin Yu was taken aback again. Gul'dan, that guy. Lin Yu, even if he is a game idiot, knows this guy who is very well known in World of Warcraft. He is the most powerful orc warlock ever. The actual controller of the Shadow Council. Most importantly, his power comes from evil energy. In World of Warcraft, the evil energy is the most evil force. And, Gul'dan in the game can even sacrifice his entire race for his own strength and benefit. He's an out-and-out villain. Even if Thanos is compared to him, he can definitely be called a good person. Such a guy is going to appear on Earth. Fortunately, it is only 1 hour. Lin Yu feels that if it exists for a long time, I am afraid that the entire Earth will fall. The thoughts in Lin Yu's heart are only a momentary matter. Just after the system prompt sounded in Lin Yu's mind, New York City was less than 10 kilometers away from the center of the battlefield. Suddenly, the earth began to tremble constantly. Something seems to be breaking through. Immediately afterwards, the building collapsed and the ground collapsed. A portal made up of huge rocks rose slowly from the ground. This portal is completely different from the portal opened by Tesseract. This portal that rises from the ground is entirely composed of unknown boulders. On both sides of the portal are 2 humanoid creatures carved from boulders, holding long swords, and seemingly guarding the portal. In the center of the portal, there was a faint green halo, which looked the same color as the Hulk's skin. And, this portal is very high as 3 or 4 stories. Its appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. But, this is not over yet. Just after the portal stabilized. From that portal, a huge figure slowly walked out. His skin is green, with a pierced body and countless bone spurs on his back, which is extremely clean. His appearance is extremely ugly, with 2 sharp fangs sticking out of his mouth. He is hung with countless creatures, skulls and bone decorations, and in his hand is a skeleton staff with a green glow, which is exactly the same as the shape in the game. Gul'dan, the fell warlock, finally came to Earth for the first time. At the moment, on the SHIELD space carrier, Nick Fury and Hill Agent also saw the horrible and ugly figure for the first time. "What is that?" Hill surprised roar for the first time. "The image of Gul'dan is really terrible. Just looking at it, I feel that my whole body is shriveling." Nick Fury felt the same way. Although Gul'dan's body and skin are somewhat similar to those super fighters. However, Nick Fury knew that this monster was definitely not researched by Ross. He is definitely not a creature on Earth. Although the appearance of the orc warlock Gul'dan is very different from that of human beings, Nick Fury can still feel the thick evil from that face. Although Gul'dan hasn't done it yet. But Nick Fury felt in his heart that this guy was definitely more difficult to deal with than those Chitauri. Eventful autumn. Nick Fury's mood is getting heavier. On the roof of the Holy Place building in New York, Ancient One also saw Gul'dan for the first time. Her face instantly became serious. As the only supreme magician on Earth, she has traveled in many universes. I have even seen Dormammu in the dark dimension with my own eyes. But she had never seen this kind of power in Gul'dan. That is a very pure power. If the power in Dormammu is pure darkness, then the power in this monster is pure evil. Oh my. It's such an evil monster from there. Even if it was Ancient One, there was a trace of panic in my heart. But as the Asgardian of the Earth, she must be ready to fight. Maddo, send my order, summon all the magicians of Holy Place and Kamar Taj, and go to the Holy Place in New York. The other two holy places only retain basic manpower. I guess they yelled hurriedly. The situation in New York is already quite crisis. Those Chitauri could hardly stop them. Now, there is another even more terrifying existence. Moreover, the power of the two is not a system at all. This shows that they are not a force. Why did they come to the Earth at the same time, and what attracted them to come? Those Chitauri are good, Tesseract is good, Ancient One knows well. They are all originally products of this universe. But the appearance of Gul'dan has completely exceeded her scope of cognition. Obviously, Gul'dan is not a life in this universe. Facing the unknown, even Ancient One couldn't help but worry. In the multi-universe, there are countless powerful lives. But with the protection of the three holy places, life in other universes cannot come to the Earth in principle. However, this evil fellow can come to Earth easily. In front of the inner door of Holy Place, New York, Mordo also saw the huge amounts of portal, and Gul'dan that followed. After hearing the teacher's order, he immediately began to arrange it without hesitation. Subsequently, the three portals were quickly opened. Several magician disciples quickly walked into the portal and conveyed the command of the Supreme Magician. The magicians on Earth almost came out for the first time, all came to New York Holy Place. Definitely, the appearance of Gul'dan was not only discovered by S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Supreme Magician Ancient One. On the Earth, people who were watching this war almost all saw the horrible figure for the first time. In a secret military base in New York, General Ross also saw the huge amounts of portal and the green Gul'dan for the first time through the satellite shots. And he also found another problem. That is, the place where Gul'dan appeared seemed to be beside his 50 super soldiers. The distance is less than 500 meters. There was a sudden ominous premonition in General Rose's heart. Although the picture on the screen in front of him is not very clear. But he could see that the monster that appeared suddenly seemed uncomfortable. At least the way to play is weird. Under normal circumstances, the stranger the way to play, the stronger it is. General Rose frowned slightly, and then said to his deputy without hesitation, "Tell my order to keep the team as far away as possible from the monster that just appeared to avoid unnecessary damage." The deputy took the order and immediately began to contact those super soldiers. These 50 super soldiers are all the super soldiers currently under General Ross. Every super soldier needs to spend a great price to make success. He didn't want to lose any of them. As the planner of this war, Loki naturally saw Gul'dan. But although he was also very curious about what this monster that appeared suddenly was. But he didn't take it too seriously. In his eyes, since the Chitauri army has arrived, the Earth is already in his own pocket. In front of the Zetaru army, even a monster is of no avail. At the moment, grocery store, Lin Yu learned that Gul'dan was summoned by his computer. He immediately ran to the door. I looked around. Immediately afterwards, he saw the guy he had only seen in the game. Lin Yu feels more deeply than others. Because, just now he was still in a group to kill him, but now he suddenly came in front of him. Lin Yu even feels guilty. What if he still remembers that he organized a group to kill him? It is not impossible. The characters in the game have already appeared in the real world, what else is impossible? Lin Yu hurriedly backed up 2 steps and hid. But Lin Yu still saw the small line on the top of Gul'dan at the moment just now. Name: Gul'dan. Race: Orc. Occupation: Warlock. Primary ability: Fell Energy. Main skills: Dark Portal. Open the portal and descend to a marked location. Drain life. Absorb the enemy's life to replenish your own strength. Fell Sickle. Reap the enemy's life in a large area. Destroy the storm. Use yourself as the center. Releases the amount of evil abilities, causing large-scale damage to the enemy. The Well of Soul. Summons a Well of Soul, and absorbs others. Soul of Life. Resurrection of Death. Giving the power of the corpse's soul. Resurrecting is a Death Knight under the control of Gul'dan. Endowing of Fell. Giving the blessing special of other life evil abilities. After receiving the blessing of evil abilities, it will under the control of Gul'dan. Summon level: Level 5. Duration: 1 hour. Seeing this line of small characters, Lin Yu thought he had crossed into the game world. Gul'dan in the game has a lot of abilities. But Lin Yu didn't expect that he could bring so many abilities into the real world. God. At this moment, Lin Yu hurriedly recruited Wanda and Sharon, and said, Go home quickly, it's not safe outside. Lin Yu's words, as well as his anxious expression, made the 2 women not only stunned. The 2 are clearly killing each other. But why does Lin Yu say it is not safe? Is it because of the monster that suddenly appeared? The 2 women naturally saw the monster coming out of the dark door. At this time, Lin Yu couldn't manage their doubts, and hurriedly pulled them into the grocery store. Then, by the way, Erha also called in. As for the Hornet, Lin Yu can't help it. The door of the grocery store is too small for him to get in. It can only be resigned. Fortunately, Lin Yu still has some understanding of Gul'dan's ability. His main ability is Fell Energy. The Fell Energy drama only has a relatively large impact on life. For Autobots, it's really hard to say. It is estimated that even outside, Bumblebee should be the safest among the people. Just after Lin Yu hurriedly hid in the grocery store, Gul'dan, who walked out of the portal, finally woke up. He slowly opened his eyes. 2 green rays of light burst out instantly. The powerful evil energy began to surge in his body. When he saw the world in front of him, a wicked smile suddenly appeared on his face. It can feel the sweetness in the air of this world. Compared with my former home, this place is cleaner and has more breath of life. Gul'dan's eyes were getting brighter and brighter. He found, there are more lives here. It's hundreds of millions. Compared with my own world, this place is simply heaven. His main ability Fell is to strengthen himself by absorbing the vitality of others. If you can turn these hundreds of millions of life breaths into your own nourishment, how strong will you be? Gul'dan became more excited as he thought about it. Although he didn't know why he suddenly appeared here, he was already looking forward to it in his heart. However, at this time, Gul'dan suddenly felt that his head had begun to suffer severe pain. Something seems to be forcibly penetrated into his brain. He suddenly hugged his head with his hands, with an expression of extreme pain on his face. But this pain comes quickly and goes quickly. In just a few seconds, it seemed to recede like the tide. But there seemed to be something more in Gul'dan's brain. He suddenly found out, I still have a very important thing to do. Although Gul'dan didn't know why it was so important, he had to finish it before he could do his own thing. It's like, that thing is my mission. And I must complete my mission first. That mission is to kill those ugly Chitauri invaders. Gul'dan didn't know why, he could know the names of those invaders. But that doesn't matter. Gul'dan's gaze suddenly looked forward. It was a huge amount of battlefield, and countless strangely shaped soldiers were constantly flying out of a strange hole. Like a group of flying bugs. Immediately afterwards, there was a cruel smile on Gul'dan's face. This mission seems to be good. In what way can you kill these worms for membership fees? Gul'dan has too many abilities, he must choose one that is convenient, fast, and most efficient. Just then, out of the corner of Gul'dan's eyes, he suddenly saw some guys who looked like him not far away. Probably, there are about 50. They are tall, with a faint green glow on their skin, like orcs who have been endowed with evil abilities. It's just a little bit like it. But in this other world, Gul'dan suddenly felt a touch of intimacy. Then let them become my first loyal servants in this world. Gul'dan opened his mouth wide and showed a smile that was uglier than crying. At the moment, under the order of General Ross, the 50 super soldiers have begun to retreat slowly. These super soldiers were injected with the serum developed through the blood of the Hulk. The desire in the mind has been magnified a lot. At the moment, they all wanted to fight happily. But, they are all elite soldiers selected from the army. Therefore, they still have the last trace of restraint in their hearts. Restrained them from rushing to the battlefield, fighting happily. It was also this weak restraint that allowed them to obey the command of General Ross. However, just when these people started to move far away, behind them, Gul'dan opened his mouth and smiled suddenly. Then, he stretched out one of his own hands. The huge evil energy began to condense in his hand. The green light gradually became more and more dazzling. In the end, it converged into a green light group almost like a small sun in his hand. Go, bring my servants back, Gul'dan said slowly. The green evil energy in his hand was released instantly and turned into 50 green light bands. These 50 green bands of light are extremely fast, and accurately hit the body of every super soldier. The huge evil energy was transmitted to the bodies of these 50 super soldiers through these green light bands. After a few seconds, the fell energy finally dissipated slowly. At this moment, the bodies of 50 super soldiers have undergone earth-shaking changes. Their bodies have become stronger, more than twice as thick as before. The green on the skin is also more intense, almost greener than the Hulk. The clothes on their bodies were all shattered, and the shoes on their feet became torn. What has changed more is their faces. At the moment, these super soldiers have almost no human characteristics. Their faces are more like the faces of the orcs in the game. Their 4 canine teeth have also grown a lot and protruded out of their mouths. At the moment, they have completely transformed into an orc eroded by evil energy. At this time, 50 super fighters slowly turned around. He looked at Gul'dan not far behind them. Their eyes all turned to a deep red color, complemented with the green on them. The red color is a manifestation of desire being magnified to the extreme. Children, tear up those nasty reptiles for me. Gul'dan stretched out a hand and pointed to the other side of the battlefield. The hoarse voice reached the ears of the 50 super soldiers. Suddenly, there were smiles on their faces as crazy and evil as Gul'dan. 50 super soldiers who had been contaminated by fell energy screamed and rushed to the distant battlefield frantically. These soldiers contaminated by fell energy are several times stronger than before, and their defense is quite strong. They are not afraid of the weapons in the hands of the Chitauri soldiers. In an instant, the Chitauri soldiers nearby were devastated. 50 fell super soldiers, like 50 orc berserkers, madly tore through Chitauri's defenses. In a secret underground military base in New York. Seeing how his soldiers had become like this, General Rose was shocked. Although it seems that these super soldiers have become more powerful, the body has been stout for more than one lap. But why did they all rush to those Chitauri? Why didn't you follow your orders? And what was the green light just now? The bad feeling in General Rose's heart became stronger and stronger. Quickly, contact them for me and let them come back as soon as possible, General Ross ordered anxiously. But the adjutant of General Ross received no response no matter how he yelled in the communicator. It seemed that no one heard at all on the communicator side. Impossible. General Rose's face became more and more ugly. The super soldiers were injected with GPS locators, and the locators showed that they were still moving. Moreover, in the picture on the screen, you can also see the scenes of them fighting crazy with Chitauri. It is impossible for them not to hear Roar from their side. But the adjutant behind him, Roar, has been still calling the super soldiers. Indeed, I have never received any response. General Rose's heart became more anxious. This is all his strength now. He also counted on these super soldiers to help him regain his position in the military. Arrange for me a CDAH plane, I'm going to the scene. General Rose felt hard and decided to go to the scene to see it. His adjutant looked surprised and hurriedly said, "General, it's not safe there right now, all are Chidori's flight machines." General Rose did not speak, but just turned his head and glanced at his adjutant. The adjutant closed his mouth hastily. He was terrified. I forgot the style of General Rose just now. Under General Ross, there is no opportunity for comments. He also absolutely does not allow his subordinates to put forward any opinions against him. Don't take it as an example. Get ready to go by plane. Don't use helicopters, prepare a transport plane. General Ross said coldly. The flight altitude of the helicopter is too low, which is indeed unsafe. Upon hearing General Rose's order, the adjutant hurriedly wiped the cold sweat that had just emerged from his forehead. After the salute, I hurried down to prepare. At the moment, even more uncomfortable is Loki. Originally, Chidori's army was almost like no one. Those Avengers could not stop the huge Chidori army at all. At first sight, victory is in sight. But, unexpectedly, Loki killed Cheng Yaojin halfway. The monster that came out of the portal was able to turn that group of human soldiers into crazy monsters. And, the strength is so powerful. Loki's face began to look ugly. Although there are only 50 green monsters. However, their combat effectiveness is too strong. Facing the powerful Chidori soldiers, they even punched one. But the weapon in Chidori's hand hit them, but it seemed to be tickling. If this continues, I'm afraid it will be bad. Loki suddenly felt that his original confidence in victory seemed to have been shaken. Where did that monster come from? Why did you oppose me? Loki cursed inwardly. Immediately afterwards, he gave the order to dispatch the whole army. The whole army is dispatched. Send a large army, and let me get rid of that nasty green monster first. Loki gave an order and all Chidori soldiers were dispatched. And, flew towards Gul'dan. In the grocery store. The 3 people who hid in the house and did not go out were lying quietly by the window, looking at the scene in the sky in the distance. What puzzled them was that the Chidori soldiers, who were flying in the sky before, suddenly all changed directions. All flew in one direction. And that direction seemed to be where the monster appeared. "Brother, what's going on outside? Should we go out and have a look?" Wanda asked anxiously. Aside, Sharon also nodded hastily. Both women seemed to be a little gossip. At this juncture of crisis, I still want to go out and have a look. Although, Lin Yu also wants to know how awesome Gul'dan is. But, Lin Yu didn't want to hurt the innocent. There is a system, as long as those who hurt themselves will be subject to negative mutations. But, the special Gul'dan is his own. Whether it was Gul'dan accidentally hurting himself, or his own system hurt Gul'dan, it was a bit inappropriate. If the boss summoned by your own computer is killed by your own system, it would be really funny. Ding, your computer has sensed the idea that the owner wants to peek, and has actively added a function for checking the status of the summoned object. Please the host peep on the computer screen by yourself. Under Loki's orders, thousands of Chidori fighters rushed towards Gul'dan in flight. All over the sky, like locusts. The pressure of the Avengers disappeared instantly. They suddenly discovered that the Zeta Swiss soldiers who had been fighting with them had all turned around. What's the situation? Steve asked hurriedly in the communicator. Yes, how come all these Zeta Swiss soldiers ran away? Natasha Romanoff also responded. At this moment, among the Avengers, only Tony Stark can see the most clearly. There was no Zeta Swiss soldier beside him either. Even the huge Leviathan beasts all flew in one direction. The direction of the monster that appeared suddenly. These Chidori all went to the monster. Tony hovered in the air, staring at the crazy scene in front of him dumbfounded. Thousands of Chidori warriors all pounced on that guy. Where is that monster sacred? Why let Loki do his best to deal with him first? It seems that these Chidori are all attacking the monster that just appeared. Tony said in the communicator. Sky. Loki was also standing on a Chidori flight, watching the crazy scene coldly. When I saw tens of thousands of Chidori warriors, under my command, they all rushed towards the monster. A smile gradually appeared at the corner of his mouth. At this time, he felt very good. Control thousands of armies, and a single command can make tens of thousands of fighters fight frantically for themselves. Moreover, there are countless humans on the ground, trembling under their feet. Loki's favorite is this feeling. Control everything, and it's the focus of everyone's attention. HMPH, since you can control so many monsters, then concentrate on killing you first. Loki snorted and hovered quietly in the air, watching tens of thousands of Chidori warriors approach the monster. The artillery on the Chidori spacecraft began to light up, and the fingers of the Chidori soldiers were all pressed on the trigger. It seems that in the next second, that monster will be covered by endless firepower. And, under such dense surroundings, even if he wanted to escape, it would be basically impossible. There was already a triumphant smile on Loki's face. But, at this time, Gul'dan, who was standing still and had not moved, suddenly moved. The corner of his mouth curled slightly. If there is nothing, it seems to be mocking something. At this moment, the skeleton staff in his hand was suddenly lifted slightly. Then, it hit the ground in an instant. Boom, a horrible scene happened. At the moment the staff landed, a huge green flame, centered on the staff, spread out instantly. Destroy the storm, launched instantly. This is a large-scale skill that can be activated instantly without chanting. The only drawback is that the cooling time is a bit long. But, for Gul'dan, this is already the best opportunity. Almost all of the Chidori soldiers who came to the Earth through the portal have arrived not far away from them. At this time, it is the best time to release the storm of destruction. A terrifying green flame swept all Chidori soldiers in an instant. No matter it is in the sky or underground, no one is spared. As long as it is a life of flesh and blood, it can't resist this terrifying force against the flesh at all. Those Chidori, although they were covered with mechanical armor, but their flesh is still centered on flesh and blood. Those battle armors couldn't stop the destruction storm at all. They were penetrated in an instant, directly hitting the flesh and blood of all Chidori soldiers. Almost in less than a second, the Chidori soldiers in the sky suddenly fell one after another. The soldiers on the ground slumped to the ground one after another. The power of the number one fell warlock in World of Warcraft has finally revealed itself in the Marvel world for the first time. Sky. The distance was a little far away, and Loki, who was not affected, was shocked. Tens of thousands of Chidori elite fighters were killed in an instant. What is this ability? Is it magic, or an evil curse? Loki thought about the ability he knew, but none seemed so scary. Even his father Odin, when using his Odin scepter, there is no way to destroy so many Chidori fighters at once. Fear, horror. Loki hurriedly controlled the flight machine under his feet and fled to the distance. In his heart, the seeds of fear have been completely planted. And at the moment, the direction in which Loki fled was the direction of the portal. There are still countless Chidori soldiers who are entering the world through the portal. At the moment, only standing under the portal can he bring Loki a little bit of psychological comfort. And the current portal has become bigger and bigger. Chidori soldiers, enter this world faster. Although tens of thousands of Chidori soldiers were killed at once. But the army of Kitari, at least tens of millions. Those that have died are just a drop in the bucket. However, when Loki came under the portal, turned his head again, and looked at Gul'dan, a scene that made him even more frightened appeared. Gul'dan moved again. He held up his staff and chanted a spell in his hoarse voice in a low voice. Then, he used a sharp bone on his body to make a cut in his palm. Dark green blood dripped onto the ground along the wound. The blood dripping on the ground quickly seeped into the ground. Then, a magic circle glowing with lavender light with a huge scope appeared at Gul'dan's feet. Immediately afterwards, in the sky above the magic circle, many things glowing with blue light suddenly appeared. Those blue substances look like a human form. It seems to be soul. Yes, it feels very much like a soul. It seems that it is the human souls who died in this war. They were summoned by Gul'dan. Then, after waiting for such blue souls all over the sky, Gul'dan smiled slightly, and the skeleton staff in his hand struck the ground again. Those blue souls began to dance all over the sky in an instant. They seemed to be looking for something. Immediately afterwards, the thing that Loki will never forget, finally happened. The blue souls each found Chidori's body and got in. Then, those corpses stood up staggeringly. There was a faint blue glow in their eyes and mouths. All of them were resurrected. Even a dozen huge Leviathan beasts slowly flew up again. But the Chidori soldiers who were resurrected again are no longer the original Chidori. They are no longer under the control of the Chidori mothership. Instead, They all stood quietly, facing Gul'dan's direction. It is clear, they were actually controlled by Gul'dan. This is another powerful ability of Gul'dan. Resurrection from death. You can absorb the souls on the battlefield, and then give them fresh bodies, and in the process turn them into puppets who only know to obey orders. Tens of thousands of Zeta Swiss soldiers with a light blue light in their eyes, after Gul'dan gave an order, once again picked up the weapons on the ground and mounted the flight machine that could still fly. More than a dozen huge leviathans are also lined up in a row, waiting for them. At this moment, the original 50 fell super warriors also came to Gul'dan's side and stood quietly by the side. Gul'dan, who came to this world alone, relied on his powerful evil energy to create an army out of thin air. And it is an army that is not afraid of death at all, and only obeys his orders. The battle on the battlefield finally changed from Chidori's one-sided advantage to a melee between the two sides. It's just that the two sides of the melee are not Chidori and Avengers. Nor is it the disciples of Chidori and Ancient One. It was the powerful fell warlock Gul'dan leading his servants and Chidori, who kept passing through the portal to this world. In the grocery store, Lin Yu took Wanda and Sharon. The three of them leaned close to the computer and saw this horrible scene. When Chidori, who was given the power of the soul, stood up, the two women suddenly opened their mouths, their eyes widened, and their faces were incredible. As a native of the earth, they have never seen such a weird thing. Dead creatures can be resurrected. In such a weird way. It almost collapsed their worldview. Is it a scientific society? But, compared to the two women, Lin Yu's reaction was not too great. Because, he had known Gul'dan's 7 or 40 powers a long time ago. Although it happened in the real world, it looks even more terrifying. However, Lin Yu still accepts that ability is stronger when he knows some things in advance. Not to mention, this Gul'dan was summoned by his own computer. When Gul'dan led the army to declare war on those Chidori who had newly arrived on Earth. In Lin Yu's mind, the system reminder sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for deeply participating in the Marvel core plot of the Battle of New York. Participation is 50%, and 5 plot points are awarded. If you continue to participate in depth, you will get more plot points. Hearing this system prompt, Lin Yu's eyes lit up. After only participating in 50%, he has already gained 5 plot points. If this is all involved, wouldn't it be possible to add 10 points to this plot alone? The first final plot of Avengers is really extraordinary. Compared with other core plots, the plot point is doubled. But, Lin Yu thought for a while, and it was normal. This Battle of New York, after all, is the core of a core in the entire Marvel world. Here, Avengers finally began to make a splash. It is also here that the Earth in the Marvel world finally begins to conflict head-on with other forces in the universe for the first time. A 10-point plot point is reasonable. But, Lin Yu was slightly confused. Now Gul'dan, summoned by his own computer, has been so desperate to participate in 50%, so what is the remaining 50%? Lin Yu is still not sure. On the roof of the Holy Place building in New York. Just when Gul'dan took action against the tens of thousands of Chidori soldiers. Ancient One is ready to do it. Although Gul'dan seems to be the enemy of the invading Chidori, the power he used is really evil. Ancient One could even smell the evil smell in the air after Gul'dan released his skills even far away. Even, compared to the pure dark taste of Dormammu, it is more pure. That is pure evil. Evil is the source of all chaos. The darkness is just darkness. Compared with the two, Ancient One feels that evil is even more terrifying. Not to mention such pure evil. But, when Ancient One was ready to do it, she hesitation a little bit down. Because, the next scene stunned her completely. That evil monster actually condensed tens of thousands of souls at once. As a supreme magician, Ancient One also controls a trace of soul power. But, she can only let herself or the soul in contact with herself get out of her body. But you can't let the dead soul recondensate. Within the scope of her knowledge, after the death of human beings, the soul will also dissipate. It also represents the real death of this person. But, that evil guy unexpectedly summoned and gathered the souls of dead human beings again. The blue things floating in the sky can't be seen clearly by others, but Ancient One can see clearly. Those, all are souls. Tens of thousands of souls who died in this war. Gul'dan's methods have completely stunned Ancient One. For a moment, she even forgot to do it. The next scene shocked Ancient One even more. Gul'dan, the use of the soul, made Ancient One an eye-opener. He was able to put the dead soul back into other corpses. This is simply unheard of, unseen. At the moment, Ancient One also no longer has any belief in victory. Having lived for hundreds of years, Ancient One felt for the first time that he was probably not an enemy's opponent at all. Maybe he is not the enemy. In Ancient One's heart, suddenly had another thought. Although the monster is full of evil power. But he didn't use that power to deal with the human beings on the earth, but went directly to the invaders. Maybe he is the same as himself. Ancient One has also been secretly absorbing the power of the dark dimension. It seems that the nature of the two is the same. Ancient One slowly retracted his spell, and then quietly observed it. She felt that her own idea was possible. Even though the monster looks ugly, it hasn't attacked humans on Earth so far. Maybe I should observe again. If he still wants to attack humans in the end, then it is not too late to go and fight him desperately. At the moment, on the battlefield, after Gul'dan's participation, everyone in Avengers had nothing to do with it. Even Tony had already landed from the sky. And Hulk, because all the enemies had gone to fight with Gul'dan's servants, he lost his enemies and finally slowly recovered his human form again. Barton, who was originally controlled by Loki with a psychic scepter, also regained consciousness because of too long time. At the moment, also returned to the middle of the Avengers. Everyone in Avengers stood quietly on the street not far from the portal in New York City. No one Chidori came to trouble them. Simply, everyone directly found a clean place and sat down. Faced with this situation, several people are a little bit reluctant to force them. It was originally the main force against Chidori's army, but in an instant it became a spectator. The change of this role is really fast. Several people even had time to chat in the corner of this battlefield. Should we do something? Barton asked weakly. He had been controlled by Loki before, and he had shot the Avengers several times, causing them a lot of trouble. And now, after his mind has recovered, he wants to do something for this war. In other words, do something for your teammates. Only by getting busy can he forget the horror of being controlled by his mind before. But it seems that there is really nothing to do. If you are energetic, go and fight them. Tony pointed to the battlefield in the distance without too much trouble, and said, "Yes, since you want to fight so much, then go." Natasha Romanoff also vomited. After hearing the words of the two teammates, Barton turned his head and looked at the fiery battlefield in the distance, and shook his head in embarrassment. "Forget it, I'm not going to be cannon fodder anymore." On the other side of the battlefield, those Chidori fighters who were resurrected by Gul'dan were not afraid of death, although the number was much smaller than the number of Chidori soldiers who came in through the portal. However, they are not afraid of death at all. And even if he was hit by fire, it seemed like nothing happened. They were originally dead men. With Chidori's hot weapons, there is no way to kill them again. On the other hand, Chidori, even if it is dead, is constantly replenished. The situation of the battle was so stalemate. At this time, if anyone dared to rush to the battlefield, it is estimated that it is simply looking for death. But shouldn't we think of a way to close the portal? Barton said weakly after thinking about it. Just when the battlefield was in full swing. In a confidential meeting room on the S.H.I.E.L.D. space carrier. Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., has again received notice of the meeting of the World Security Council. In the meeting room, on the big screen in front of Nick Fury, those familiar faces appeared again. Several members of the World Security Council. They are the department responsible for supervising S.H.I.E.L.D. But at the last meeting, Nick Fury and these people fell apart because of the formation of Avengers. So, this meeting was a bit embarrassing. Especially Nick Fury. Surely say that by forming a response team, Loki's aggression can be resolved. But I didn't expect it. This emergency team did not seem to play a decisive role. What really prevented the Chidori army from coming, turned out to be a monster that looked extremely ugly and didn't know where it came from. This makes Nick Fury, who was originally vowed, feel a little embarrassing. But he is Nick Fury after all. As one of the thickest-skinned people in the Marvel world, he quickly returned to his original calm appearance. But after hearing a director speak out their decision. Nick Fury's calmness disappeared again. What, are you going to use nuclear weapons against New York? Nick Fury asked in shock. Have you considered it clearly? That's New York City, a city with tens of millions of people. Have you thought about the consequences of dropping nuclear weapons on New York? Furthermore, the battle on the battlefield is still going on, and we haven't completely lost it yet. Nick Fury was furious. He really didn't know what these people thought. Could it be that in order to win the war, one can do whatever it takes? Can you sacrifice tens of millions of ordinary people? Is this for the people of Malekin or for themselves? Moreover, the current situation on the battlefield, Chitauri does not seem to take advantage. Director Fury, the two sides fighting over New York are both invaders. No matter which side of them wins, it will be a disaster for the Earth. Now is the best time to solve them all at once. The director of, said. Nick Fury just wanted to retort. At this moment, the director in the middle said righteously, Director Fury, this is something the council has decided. Your space carrier is the closest to there, so. When Nick Fury heard this, his face suddenly became angry. You can tell your decision, but I can also refuse it. I can't order a nuclear strike against civilians. Nick Fury exploded and turned off all the big screens in front of him. He has also been completely disappointed with the members of the World Security Council. They are a group of politicians who only know to protect their own interests. But, Nick Fury obviously underestimated the ability of this group of people. Less than 2 minutes later, a fighter plane carrying a nuclear weapon secretly took off from the SHIELD space carrier. Nick Fury's lungs are going to explode. But, the fighter plane has taken off, and he can't block the fence at all. I can only call Tony's communication in a hurry. As a whole Avengers, it seems that only Tony can solve this problem. Tony, a fighter plane is heading towards you, and he has nuclear weapons on it. Hearing Nick Fury's words, Tony was completely blindfolded. Nuclear weapons. These lunatics are going to drop nuclear weapons on the most prosperous city in Malekin. It's crazy. Before Tony had time to greet Roar with his companions, he just took off. While starting the flight, I shared this terrible news with my companions in the communicator. Suddenly, there were some people who were idle just now, and they immediately became energetic. Nuclear bomb. They have a high self-esteem, but they have never felt that they can withstand a nuclear bomb. That kind of thing is simply a disaster created by mankind. At the scene, there was only one person who had not yet realized what he was about to face. What is a nuclear bomb? Thor asked dumbfounded. At the same time, General Ross also took a transport plane and came to the sky over New York. His mood is very uncomfortable. Why did the super soldier army that I worked hard to build suddenly become disobedient? The creation of these super soldiers is very troublesome. Not only is it necessary to carefully select suitable soldiers, but also the soldiers' bodies can deeply integrate with those serums. In this process of building super soldiers, although only 50 soldiers succeeded, the number of soldiers who died in the experiment has reached more than 200. This probability of success is a test of huge amounts for the military. The current information is too transparent, and it is impossible to completely conceal the death of these soldiers. So, the military has issued an order to let General Ross postpone the creation of the super soldier. It can be said, in the future, it will be more difficult to build a super soldier than before. And these 50 super soldiers are even more precious. Sitting in the cabin of the transport plane. Through the computer screen in front of him, General Ross could clearly see the scenes of super soldiers fighting Chitauri. They have become stronger and more fearless than death. This made General Rose's heart dripping with blood. Such a strong fighter, why didn't he obey the command? But, at this time, a phone call came in suddenly. After General Rose's adjutant picked it up, his face changed drastically after hearing a few words. He put down the phone and hurriedly said to General Ross, "General, it's not good. A nuclear missile is coming here. It is estimated that in 5 minutes, the nuclear missile will explode near here." The adjutant was terrified. Who is crazy to drop missiles into tens of millions of big cities like New York? General Rose was originally absent-minded. But, when I heard the 3 words nuclear missiles, I immediately struck a spirit. Nuclear missile? Rose asked his adjutant in disbelief. The adjutant nodded solemnly. As a general of the military, he understands the power of nuclear missiles better than anyone. General Ross was completely regretful. I just arrived here, and want to see if I can save my super soldier. There are nuclear missiles coming. Isn't it? Your own super soldier is not saved. The super soldier army that you have worked so hard to build is not going to turn into ashes in the nuclear missile explosion. Who ordered the launch of nuclear missiles? Call me to terminate this operation. General Ross roared angrily. General Ross still has a certain degree of authority in the military. He really didn't want to give up his 50 super soldiers. That was almost all his hard work. It is also his hope of turning over. But, at this moment, the adjutant said weakly, it is not an order of the military, it is the World Security Council. Hearing the name, General Rose looked dazed. It's over. You can't control this department yourself. It's pretty good if someone can remind oneself. It is estimated that it is impossible to stop their attacks. In an instant, General Rose seemed to be quite old. Will all my hopes finally be destroyed? Blame the hateful Lin Yu. It was he who controlled his dog, destroyed his military base, and made himself finally reach this point. If your own military base is still there and there are countless soldiers under your own hands, then you can build your own super soldier army without relying on the Pentagon. General Ross blamed everything on Lin Yu. Turn around, let's leave. General Ross ordered through gritted teeth. Immediately afterwards, he seemed to feel more uncomfortable the more he thought about it. He threw a fist on the computer in front of him and shouted angrily, Lin Yu, I will definitely kill you and cramp you to get rid of my hatred. At the moment, Lin Yu, who was in the grocery store, was taken aback. In my mind, the system prompt sounded again suddenly. Ding! The United States Army General Ross spoke rudely to the host, intimidated and threatened. He couldn't stand the plane he was in, so he decided to change the course, take the initiative to meet the upcoming nuclear missile, and leave this absurd world. Lin Yu was a little confused. He hid well at home. No one provokes. Why did General Rose scold himself? I even scared myself. Crazy. In this world, there are really all kinds of messy people, and the hatred between himself and General Rose seems to have been provoked by him on his own initiative. I have always been passive in revenge. Now, he didn't hate him, he hated himself instead. It's really unreasonable. But, nuclear bomb. Lin Yu suddenly noticed the word in the system prompt. At this time, Lin Yu suddenly remembered the plot that he almost forgot. The fighting on the battlefield is too fierce now, and Gul'dan is too fierce. Those Chidori feel like endless players, attacking a powerful boss in a group. This gives Lin Yu the feeling of watching the game live. Let Lin Yu patronize and appreciate the battle, and for a while forgot about the nuclear bomb. But, it's not a big deal if I don't remember it. General Rose was indeed a good man. He took the initiative to ask for help to resolve the threat of nuclear bombs. At the moment, on the plane where General Ross is. After General Ross gave an order, the pilot began to control the plane to leave the sky over New York. But, sudden, an electronic synthesis sound came from the cab. Autopilot is turned on, please leave the driver's cab. Autopilot is turned on, please leave the driver's cab. Autonomous driving is turned on. The pilot of the plane was blindfolded. When did you start autopilot? No, I didn't turn on autopilot. Do not. Wrong. Even if the autopilot is turned on, there is no such thing as a pilot leaving the cab. I haven't heard of that. After the aircraft turned on autopilot, the flight crew was asked to leave the cockpit. What's the situation? The driver was a little flustered and started to operate in a hurry. The operation was as fierce as a tiger, but the plane seemed to be unresponsive. And it has been playing the sound just now in a loop. Autopilot is turned on, please leave the driver's cab. Autopilot is turned on, please leave the driver's cab. Autonomous driving is turned on. The driver was completely stunned. And, the flight direction of the plane also suddenly turned a turn and flew in the opposite direction from before. Looked at the flight direction on the dashboard. The flightman was shocked. The flightman has also heard all the conversation between General Ross and his adjutant just now. But according to this flight direction, wouldn't it be getting closer and closer to the place where the nuclear bomb exploded? At this time, the flightman finally remembered to report to General Rose. Because he can't solve it anymore. If you fly in this direction again, it is estimated that the missile will collide with the missile before it explodes. General, our plane failed, the flightman said in a panic. In the cabin, after hearing the flightman's words in the earphones, General Rose's face was taken aback. What is an airplane failure? Okay, how could it fail? What's the situation? Make it clear, General Ross said coldly. The most annoying thing about him is that his soldiers cannot speak clearly. I was so coldly reprimanded by General Ross. The flightman is even more nervous. Not because of fear of General Rose. It's because, if you continue to explain, I am afraid it will be too late to jump the plane. General, hurry up. The flightman's face was horrified, and his heart throbbed. Say it clearly. Escape is important. Before General Rose asked again, a hiss sound came from the headphones. Flightman, he was offline. At this moment, the adjutant of General Rose seemed to have noticed something too. He hurried to the side of the airplane window and looked out the window. This look suddenly scared Silly, because he saw the figure of the flightman. The flightman actually jumped down. Definitely, he jumped down with a parachute. But the question is, the flightman ran away, who will drive the plane? Immediately afterwards, the adjutant saw a scene that made him feel even more frightened. Unconsciously, how did the plane fly over the center of New York City? He can even clearly see the glowing tesseract on the Stark Industrial Building. General, we seem to have flown back. General Rose's adjutant said blankly. Outside the window, not only the Stark Industrial Building can be seen. You can also see countless Chitauri soldiers fighting against the servants controlled by Gul'dan. Fortunately, the altitude of the plane was slightly higher, and it was temporarily not shot down by those Chitauri. But the question now is, what should I do if there is no flight crew? Moreover, the most serious problem is that the missile is also coming. Missiles are not the most serious problem. Because if you skydive at this time, you will definitely jump to the center of the battlefield. For a moment, General Rose and his adjutant, with big eyes to small eyes, were completely helpless. But General Rose and his adjutant parachuted. After all, parachuting still has a chance of surviving. The two picked up their parachutes, opened the rear door of the plane, and jumped down without hesitation. But, to them, fortunately, below them, there seemed to be a place where there was not much fighting. It seems that Chitauri soldiers have deliberately avoided that place. There was a bright yellow sports car parked on the ground. As he got closer to the ground, General Rose's heart became more and more excited. The small sports car below looks intact. After a while, you can find a way to fire, and then drive this car to rush out, away from the battlefield. I still have a chance. Stay in the Green Mountains without worrying about no firewood. As long as you can escape, you can make a comeback. At this time, General Rose stopped thinking about his 50 super soldiers. Your own life is the most important. But, at this time, General Ross saw it suddenly. A shop door beside the yellow sports car was suddenly opened. A fat head suddenly emerged from the crack in the door. Immediately afterwards, it seemed to hear some movement, and actually raised its head and looked at the sky. At the moment, General Ross was less than 200 meters from the ground. He could even see that the pet dog that suddenly emerged from the store had a smile on his face. Right, just smile. The corners of its mouth were slightly tilted up, revealing a row of sharp canine teeth inside. Even, its eyes turned into crescent-shaped smiles. General Rose suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Moreover, how does this pet dog look so familiar? Immediately afterwards, General Rose remembered that he had seen it there. Because the husky on the ground suddenly turned green. Especially its dog's head, in a few seconds, it became crazy big. Until it became a green monster with a huge head. Isn't this Lin Yu's pet dog? Isn't it that it destroyed its military base twice? Did you burn your hair and eyebrows? Then, General Rose found out even more horrified. The monster on the ground actually opened its blood basin in the direction of its fall. General Ross even felt that even two selves would definitely be swallowed in one bite. Mid-air, General Rose struggled frantically, trying to change the landing position, Zhao's. But it is too close to the ground now. Even if you try harder, it is estimated that it can only be offset by a few meters. This distance is the same as not moving. General Ross wanted to take hold of the parachute, but found that he couldn't undo it at all. Time does not wait. Number. With a loud scream of horror, roar, the first generation of Marvel World table heroes, General Ross, slowly landed in Urhan's big mouth of blood. Shocked, Roar stopped abruptly. In the grocery store. After hearing the loud roar, the Lin Yu trio hurriedly raised their heads and looked out the door. But only an empty parachute outside the crack of the door can be seen. Erha, hurry up and get me back. Lin Yu roared. Erha was so scared that he hurriedly changed back to his original form and ran in from outside. Lin Yu kicked his leg. The one who hates iron but not steel said, "Don't you know how dangerous it is outside?" Still running around. Feeling a foot on his butt that was lighter than a tickle, Erha burped aggrievedly. I walked to the corner of the grocery store, shook my head, and spit out a boot full of saliva. The death of Rose is just a trivial matter for the entire Marvel world. Even Lin Yu didn't know that General Ross had ran into Erha's belly by himself. Lin Yu doesn't care about people like General Ross at all. In the Marvel world where monsters fly all over the sky, an ordinary military general really can't make a big storm. And at the moment, although General Ross has become the food of Erha, but the plane he flew before was still flying in the sky. And the speed has reached the fastest. Originally, this kind of transport plane could not fly too fast. But, I don't know if it's the cause of the system or what. Its speed has exceeded the limit. The two engines on the plane made an overwhelming roar and flew towards the east of New York. And at the moment, on the sea east of New York, a fighter plane from the Shield space carrier is rapidly approaching New York. The pilots of this fighter jet have sweat in their palms. Although he only obeyed the order, he knew if the nuclear missile was actually dropped into the center of New York by himself, then, his name will be recorded in the annals of history. However, it will not be a positive description. But he couldn't help it. As a small flightman, if he doesn't obey the order, the consequences are definitely not something he can bear. The fighter flightman was nervous. Tony at the moment was even more nervous. He has seen the plane in the distance through the high-tech telescope on the steel battle suit. He has seen that under the fighter plane, a missile has been set up. Then, it should be a nuclear bomb. However, just when Tony was thinking about what to do, he suddenly felt that the entire sky was darkened. Tony hurriedly looked up. In the sky, a huge transport plane, Roar, whizzed past. Tony was a little dumbfounded. When did the transport plane fly so fast? The fighter pilot did not expect that a plane would fly towards him. And at the moment, the driver is in a moment of extreme tension. Did not pay attention to the black spot in the distance. Nor did I see the small dot shown on the radar. His focus is all on the red button in front of him. Ready to launch nuclear missiles. The fighter pilot said nervously. 3. Emission. Boom. As soon as I pressed the red launch button, a violent explosion suddenly sounded in the sky. A huge amounts of mushroom cloud, rising from the sea level. The shock of terror set off huge waves on the sea. Even Tony, who was watching from a distance, was not spared and was lifted off by the huge amounts of shockwave. It wasn't until he fell into the ocean that Tony finally stabilized his body. The nuclear bomb exploded on the spot. It happened to collide with that transport plane. At this moment, Nick Fury's surprise voice rang from Tony's communicator. "Stark, how did you get that nuclear bomb?" Nick Fury was surprised. It is the best result to be able to make a nuclear bomb explode at sea. If it really explodes in the center of New York, the consequences will be disastrous. But, Tony really wanted to solve the nuclear missile himself. After all, it's such an easy thing to show off. But, he is not so thick-skinned that he claims to be his own credit for what has nothing to do with him. It seems that a large transport plane collided with that missile just now. Tony thought about it and explained. But, he himself found this explanation somewhat ridiculous. A state-of-the-art nuclear missile hit a transport plane. If he heard this kind of news, Tony himself would not believe it. After all, for things like transport planes, the flight speed is very slow, and nuclear missiles all have a guidance system. It is unlikely that they will collide with other things unless they reach their destination. "What did you say?" Nick Fury asked incredulously. He saw the huge amounts of mushroom cloud on the big screen. But I didn't notice how it exploded. At this time, hearing Tony's words, it was like he was joking. Definitely. Nor can I blame Nick Fury. After all, even Lin Yu, after hearing the violent explosion, felt that the system made a joke of huge amounts of with him. A joke like a mushroom cloud. In the grocery store. Lin Yu frowned slightly. The development of this plot seems to be a bit biased. Originally, the nuclear bomb should have been sent into the portal by Tony wearing a steel battle suit. Then the nuclear bomb exploded, killing Chidori's headquarters. In this way, the war is over. But now, Temo was hit by a broken plane and exploded ahead of time. What about Chidori? Is it possible that Gul'dan alone can really withstand Chidori's tens of millions of troops? Lin Yu thought for a while. If there is enough time, it is estimated that it is really possible. But unfortunately, Gul'dan lasted only 1 hour. And now, almost half an hour has passed. Lin Yu hurriedly looked at the computer screen again. On the battlefield, the situation has changed again. The battle situation seemed a bit stale, because the portal was getting bigger and bigger, and the scale of victory started to lean towards the Chidori army. There are too many of them. As if endless. Although Gul'dan's servants are not afraid of death, even if they can beat 100 against 100, there will always be times when their bodies are sifted and cannot stand up. Finally, the Chidori army began to advance slowly. And seeing this picture, the corners of Loki's mouth also showed a slight smile again. The whole army is dispatched. Tear the monster to pieces for me. Loki yelled excitedly. It seemed that all the depression in my heart burst out. But Loki didn't feel happy for long, and then wilted again. On the battlefield, Gul'dan, who had been standing behind watching his servants fighting with the enemy, moved again. He didn't seem to worry about the current situation at all, but waiting for something quietly. Finally, he raised the skeleton staff in his hand and muttered the spell in a low voice. After a few minutes, in front of him, a green light flashed, and a square object with huge amounts of suddenly appeared. This thing looks like a huge amounts of tripod. The inside of the tripod was glowing with green light, making it impossible to see what was inside. But Lin Yu in front of the computer screen immediately recognized what this tripod was. Well of Souls, one of Gul'dan's ability. When the tripod appeared, there seemed to be a strange sound from the entire sky. It's like countless souls crying in the sky. Quite a rash. Those crying sounds gradually turned into translucent blue things. From all directions, they began to gather towards the well of soul summoned by Gul'dan. The first to recognize those things was Ancient One. She watched in horror. Millions of souls were absorbed by the strange thing. Then, what's more terrifying is, after those souls flew into the well, they turned into a faint green when they came out. These green souls began to frantically search for the corpses on the ground. Almost in less than half a minute, countless bodies of Chidori soldiers stood up again. And a green light appeared in the eyes of these corpses. It's no longer the blue it used to be. At the moment, around Gul'dan, a large number of servants gathered again. A servant with a trace of evil ability. The most terrifying thing is that the number of these fell slaves seems to be endless. As long as a Chidori warrior falls on the ground, a soul will fly out of the well of soul and get into the corpse. In just a few minutes, Gul'dan's army of servants has reached hundreds of thousands. There are mountains and plains, and the sky and the ground are all Chidori soldiers with green eyes. The situation reversed instantly. No matter how many Chidori soldiers and Leviathan beasts appear in the portal, they will be instantly killed by Gul'dan's servants. Then stood up again and joined the army of slaves. Gul'dan's ability is like a plug-in. No matter how much Chidori is, it can't resist this kind of consumption. Finally, for unknown reasons, the number of Chidori soldiers flying over in the portal seemed to gradually decrease. It seems that something has happened on the other side of the portal. And at the moment, on the portal side, there is almost no living Chidori on the earth. There is only an army of servants with green eyes. Loki no longer knew when, and quietly hid in the corner of the roof of the Stark Industrial Building. He has completely lost his confidence. This war seemed to be a farce for that monster. He had never made a few moves at all, relying on an endless army of servants to turn the tide of the battle. At this moment, Gul'dan's ugly face finally smiled again. He suddenly raised the skeleton staff in his hand, using the language of an orc, Roar shouted loudly, "Children, it's time to counterattack." The army of millions of servants began to rush towards that huge portal frantically. The expedition has finally begun. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.